Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting of July 15th. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:31. Point of pride to try and start on time. The mayor is on business in Quebec City. He can't join us tonight. But before we go any further, I'm going to ask Councillor O'Sullivan to read the land acknowledgement. Thank you. Thank you.
The municipality of testing. Sounds okay. The municipality of North Grenville acknowledges that the municipality operates on the territory of the Anishinaabe. We recognize all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who now call North Grenville their home. We respect and support the need for cultivating a strong relationship, and we commit to Indigenous-informed decision-making to foster the path towards reconciliation.
I see, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Your hand is up. Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
I just want to be sure that I am audible and visible. Well, I can't join you in person. As you know, I have committed my time this evening to make sure that I can listen to the meeting and actively participate. So I just want to make sure that you can see and hear me.
You're seen and heard, and essential for us meeting quorum tonight. So thank you
Indeed.
for dialing
Thank
in.
you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to deliver some opening remarks prepared by staff. So it's certainly been a week of celebrating milestones in North Grenville. Yesterday, we celebrated the 65th anniversary of Howard Wilson Motors and Kempville Towing. I was there, and it was a great event. They've kept our community moving with 24/7 roadside assistance, repairs, storage, and of course, reliability, making a lasting contribution to our community. Earlier today, we also celebrated, and thank you, Councillor Sullivan, for attending, the 100th birthday of Len Potachin. I hope I've got that name right. He's the regional founder of EQ Homes. EQ Homes has helped shape North Grenville with the Equinel residential community, providing housing, infrastructure, and amenities to North Grenville. We're grateful for the many local businesses who continue to pour investment into our community. Looking ahead, we've had a busy week filled with community events. Tomorrow, the South Branch Serenade continues its free summer concert series, and this is a series that was initiated by the late Don Muntz, who regrettably left us a few weeks ago. And they're bringing live music to our waterfront from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And the performance will be held in Rotary Park, where you can attend by boat or bring a chair to enjoy music by performers Patty Gaffney and Washtub Frank, which is certainly created interest in my part. Beat the Heat on Friday with Two Boys Lemonade and more, who will be serving lemonade, baked goods, and treats from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 10 Smith Road in Oxford Station. All donations will be going to Sounders Country Critters Zoo and Sanctuary. Continuing on this busy Friday, from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., the North Grenville Employment Resource Centre will be holding a WHMIS course for anyone in need of their WHMIS certification. The course will pull you into 5 real-life situations, engaging content and skill-building exercise to give a fruitful learning experience. From noon till 1 p.m., the Downtown Kempville BIA and the Nest Wellness Centre are hosting Wellness in the Park at Rotary Park. This is a free event for you to move, connect, and thrive, open to all levels. Later that evening, the Highway 43 Car Club continues as usual at 5:30, this time at the Municipal Centre in the parking lot here. They'll be hosting their cruise night and a lively gathering where everyone is free to join and share their love of vintage cars. On Saturday, July 18th, On the Road Again takes the stage with a one-night only live concert at the Urbandale Arts Centre. This is where we are when it's not Chambers. in tribute to Willie Nelson. The tribute will be a full theater concert experience celebrating the music and legacy of country legend Willie Nelson. Enjoy a 6-piece live band and all the Willie Nelson classics, including Whiskey River, Always on My Mind, and Crazy. Tickets are available for purchase online at the North Grenville website. Doors open at 6:30. Finally, on Sunday, July 19th, Lavender Mills Farm will be hosting the North Grenville Lavender Festival from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Stroll through their lavender fields and shop from local vendors for only $5 per adult at 22243 Beach Road in Oxford Mills. With that, I'll move to the agenda. Thank you. So I'll be looking for the adoption of the agenda. Hopefully people have availed themselves of agendas at the front entranceway. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda. So I see Mayor Peckford. Are you moving?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And looking for a seconder. I don't have far to look. Thank you. Councillor O'Sullivan. So all in favor? As amended? Oh, as amended. I'm sorry. Turn the page. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Our clerk has advised me that a PowerPoint presentation has been updated for this evening's public meeting, and that unfortunately the delegation from Beth Donovan Hospice is unable to attend. So the mover and seconder, again, I'm looking to move the amended agenda, if that's okay. Right.
Happy to move the amended
Oh.
agenda.
Oh, I see you down there. I'm only looking up at your other, okay, thank you, Mayor Peckford. All in favor? Thank you. Are there any members with a declaration of pecuniary interest in tonight's matters or the general nature thereof for any agenda items? Seeing none, I'll move on. Council will now hold a public meeting to consider an application for lands located at 1486 O'Neill Road, OPA-01-26 and ZBA-05-26. I think I'll be saying that a lot this evening, those numbers. I'm going to need to advise you that this meeting is your opportunity to voice any objections or concerns you may have with respect to the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. If the appellant does not provide oral submissions at this public meeting or written submissions before council adopts the proposed amendment, the Ontario Lands Tribunal may refuse to consider their objections. Any persons who wish further notice of the council's decision concerning this matter should give their full name, address, and postal code to the planner, Amy Martin, to my right, following adjournment of this public meeting. Are there people here for this public meeting? If so, could you please raise your hand? Okay, thank you. I'll now pass the meeting over to Deputy Director of Planning and Development, Phil Mosher. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We do have a slide deck, which I believe will be pulled up momentarily. And while that's happening, I can just introduce the application that's been received. It's an application that's been submitted by MHBC on behalf of Tomlinson. Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. It's concurrent applications under the Planning Act to amend the official plan and zoning designations at 1486 O'Neill Road. The separate application under the Aggregate Resources Act, the effect of all of these would be to permit a licensed pit at the property, and we'll get into where this is located and its subject lands. Next slide, please. So this property is located at the northwest of the East Oxford hamlet. It's in parts of lot 13 and 14 in concession 8 in the geographic township of Oxford on Rideau. It's indicated in this dark outline with the star. It's including the lands which have the MXAP swath through the center, as well as 2 rural zoned portions on either side. Under this current zoning, it is zoned rural, and the middle swath is zoned mineral aggregate preservation zone. Next slide, please.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I'm so sorry, Mr. Mosher. I just don't see the slide deck on the screen. And I'm just wondering if it's possible for the clerk to put the slide deck up, or is that not achievable? If that's not the case, I will I think the PowerPoint was sent to me via email. I just want to confirm with the clerk. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
You should be able to see it now.
Okay, I don't see it, but of course I will take a look at the PowerPoint that was sent later today because I believe it's the same information that would be on the slides. Thank you.
Yeah, and if it helps, I'll just say which slide I happen to be on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So I'm on slide 4, which shows official plan designations for the subject property. Again, it's outlined in black with the star on it. So under North Grenville's official plan, more of the lands are recognized as a mineral aggregate reserve, shown in this kind of hatchy symbol within the center and the swath that goes up. The remainder of the property is zoned rural, and that's around O'Neill Road and Patterson's Corners roads to the north and east, as well as a small portion of the subject property that's zoned agriculture everywhere on the west of the property where the mineral aggregate designation does not exist. We'll stay on this slide for a minute. Under the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville official plan, the lands are designated agricultural and rural, and the entire property is designated as a tertiary sand and gravel resource. North Grenville's official plan also identifies that these lands west of the mineral aggregate band are an unevaluated wetland, and there is a watercourse, which you can see in blue on this slide, which drains to the west towards Kempville Creek. This property does overlie a highly vulnerable aquifer and significant groundwater recharge aquifer. Next slide, please. The proposed development for the licensed pit would see a license applied to 44.1 hectares of the property, with 37.2 hectares being proposed for extraction over 5 phases, progressing from the southwest to the northeast. Ultimately, the site is planned as a below the water table pit with no dewatering. As seen on this slide, in the circle labeled PP, planned processing operations would occur approximately 250 meters from property boundaries and 500 meters from currently established residences. The applicant has requested the ability to recycle aggregate and concrete, which would also occur in the processing area. Phased berms depicted in green along the perimeter adjacent O'Neill Road, Patterson's Corners Road, and County Road 20 are proposed as the primary mitigative measures. Vegetative screening is also proposed as an additional measure. This plan does show an unevaluated wetland to the west, which has been evaluated by a qualified biologist. While the wetland has not met scoring requirements for provincial significance, no extraction is proposed within it or within 15 meters of its boundary. At the northeast of this proposed site plan, there is an archaeological location that's been found. And so there's a proposed increased buffer and separation from this area. It's known as the J. McAvoy area. Required studies were completed and considered impacts from this proposed pit, as well as the surrounding area and residences. Next slide, please. So pre-consultation occurred with municipal and agency staff in 2023, and during which studies and reports were identified that would be required for the application to be deemed complete. As a result, the following information has been received and was identified as being required. If we could go to the next slide as well. And I'll just read the first one again. So we've received the planning report, a level 1 and 2 water report, maximum predicted water table report, natural environmental report, and environmental impact statement, acoustic assessment report, cultural heritage evaluation, stage 1, 2, and 3 archaeological assessments, a heritage impact assessment, a traffic impact assessment, and Aggregate Resources Act site plans, which show existing feature plans, operational plans, rehabilitation plans, operational notes plans, and cross-sections plan. If we can go to the slide, which is slide 9, which just talks about peer reviews. So some of the reports that have been submitted were beyond the scope or the expertise of planning staff to review, and they have been sent for peer review. They were undertaken for the water reports, the acoustic assessment report, and the natural environment report and environmental impact statement.
Can I stop you right there? I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation, but these peer reviews, I understand the reason for them. Are they mandatory? Not mandatory, but are we obliged to pay for them or the applicant?
Applicant.
Applicant. Okay, thanks.
So all this information has been available, and there's been individuals who've asked and requested for some of this information. It's been posted on our website as well and able to be accessed. As a result of circulating this, we did circulate these applications, the official plan and zoning amendment applications in accordance with the Planning Act, and we've received external as well as agency comments and internal comments. If we could go to the next slide. So I just want to make a note that I'm going to paraphrase or summarize, and that's not intended in any way to diminish the comments that have been received. Most comments have been very fulsomely expressed over multi-page letters. I can let everyone here know that every attachment or letter of objection or opposition has been sent to council, so they've received that directly and have had the chance to review the full letter. But for purposes of the presentation this evening, I'm just going to summarize, and I hope to do justice and apologize if I do not. So Carl Cannon prepared a letter of opposition requesting that council not support the subject application. This letter also expressed that if council could not support the request of objection, that some recommended mitigation measures should be implemented as part of the zoning amendment and license application. A letter of objection was received from Lena and Chris McLeod, citing concerns with property value impacts, environmental considerations, wildlife concerns, strain on infrastructure, noise pollution, and traffic, as well as neighborhood character. A letter of opposition from Veronique Roy, requesting council deny the amendments. The letter raised concerns with timing of the applications, concerns with impacts to water wells, impacts from noise and light pollution from 24/7 hours of operation, health impacts from dust particulates, impacts to road infrastructure and potential conflicts with alternative road users, pedestrians, children accessing play spaces, and concerns with the vision of North Grenville. Next slide, please, to continue. We received a letter of opposition from Carol Cannon, citing concerns with non-compliance from pit operation, impact on property values, inclusion of on-site aggregate recycling as a land use, concerns for health impacts to residents, a request for real-time air quality monitoring because of aggregate recycling uses being requested, concern with timing of berm installation, concern with hours of operation for the proposed pits, and a request for further restrictions. We received a letter from Doug Scott that the amendments be postponed pending a cost-benefit analysis being completed and presented to council. The letter also cites that carbon sequestering has been lost from tree removal that recently occurred at the property, as well as resident wildlife population, loss of agricultural land, increased heavy truck traffic along County Road 20, resulting in increased noise, dust, and safety concerns, as well as to residents, cyclists, and commuters using the roadway. In addition, accelerated deterioration of County Road 20, increased noise and environmental pollution for residents, and equity loss by current residents. Next slide, please. We also received several requests for information from a Mrs. Bukal, Mr. Peterson, Ms. Deans, Ms. Lockman, an inquiry from a Mr. Campbell regarding whether studies for plate tectonics had occurred as part of the submission. They have not. An email from Hydro One indicating that they do not provide comments, an email of no objection from Enbridge Gas, an email from the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville Roads Department noting comments in relation to truck routes and requesting some clarifications as part of the submitted traffic analysis. We also received an email from Public Works indicating that as access is onto County Road, there are no little to no impacts to the municipal road system. An email of no comment from the building division, an email of no comment from emergency and protective services, and an email from bylaw services noting that the activity will likely lead to an increase in noise and traffic complaints, and requesting information about fencing as part of the license process.
Before you go on, Deputy Director, you kindly forwarded a number of letters of objection that came in today. Are they included in the agenda package? And
Yes.
I believe the agenda package was printed off and is available. Is that so? They're in the printed copy of the agenda package? No. Okay. Oh, in the PowerPoint. Okay. Thank you.
The PowerPoint that through you, Deputy Mayor, that's why there was an amendment to the agenda, because I received these letters of objection today and wanted to produce them in the PowerPoint presentation for this.
Thank you. Understood. Go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Mosher. Those letters that came in today, though, are not on the website, right, as part of the agenda package?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. They are definitely part of the public record, but they're not included on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So the written report goes into much more detail regarding policy consistency and how it's been achieved. And if anybody is interested in those sections and analysis, I can answer specific questions. But for the purpose of this presentation, I wanted to take a time to summarize the report. All policies, whether it be provincial policy statement, North Grenville's official plan, or the United Counties official plan, speak for the need for both protection and access for mineral resources while ensuring compatibility with rural areas, residents, the natural resources, the natural environment, and other resources such as water.
I apologize. I think we've lost the mayor and therefore quorum. So
Okay.
I need to consult with the clerk about progressing.
It shows that she's still on there, just the camera's off. Yep, no, she's
Oh.
still there.
Okay. And I note while I have her attention that your hand was up. Is that a legacy hand? Oh, your hand is no longer up. Madam Mayor?
I can assure you I'm here on two different devices. The internet connection is a bit stable. So I have two devices so that if I lose one, I should be able to rely on the other. But I was having difficulty hearing and I turned off my camera so that I could be sure to hear Mr. Mosher's presentation, even if I couldn't see it, just because of some potential internet challenges. But you
Okay.
have me on two devices. I don't think you'll lose me. I think I'm hearing everything perfectly right now.
Okay. If you have a comment and I don't see your hand, just speak up and I'll recognize you. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
I apologize for that.
Okay, so just to recap, the written report does go into much greater detail, but all levels of government who have policies that govern land use require that there be protection and access for mineral resources while ensuring compatibility with rural areas, residents, the natural environment, and other resources like water. As planners, sometimes our job can be likened to a balancing exercise, and I've assessed whether this balance of all competing policies and priorities has been achieved through the submission of the materials and the policies as they exist. To determine consistency, all reports and documents were reviewed. I did review them even if I was not an expert in those fields. So then those were sent for peer review. Additionally, comments from residents and review agencies have been evaluated. In the interest of consistency and balance, where it's believed changes were warranted from a land use planning perspective, such as setbacks from the processing or recycling areas, or protection for archaeological resources, or a setback from a wetland, these have been incorporated in draft amending zoning bylaws that staff have prepared. At the same time, some concerns raised by residents, such as detailed design, width and timing of berm construction, dust suppression, or noise controls are regulated through the Aggregate Resources Act license rather than zoning. For this reason, these comments have been captured in the report as a separate section, and staff is recommending that if council approves the official plan and zoning amendment applications, that a separate resolution should be passed with recommended conditions that can be forwarded to the Ministry of Natural Resources under the Aggregate Resources Act license process. Ultimately, this pit will have impacts as a result of its establishment. And the planning question from a staff perspective is whether the proposed mitigation and regulatory controls that are being proposed can be reduced to acceptable levels. And this is in accordance with planning policy frameworks that exist at the province, county, and staff level. And it is my opinion as a staff person that the submissions that have been provided have demonstrated, in my opinion, that they have achieved policy consistency. Some highlights of the proposed official plan amendment based on the comments that have been received. It would be an amendment to redesignate the lands from rural and mineral aggregate reserve to mineral aggregate pit, which would allow a licensed pit. Comments that have been received from the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville highlight that a portion of these lands are agricultural and that designation through section 4.3.4 of the PPS is unable to be removed. So therefore, staff is proposing that some wording of acknowledgement be included in any amendment that's passed. If it is to re-amend the lands from a land use designation perspective, also acknowledging that there'd be restoration of agriculture where feasible as part of rehabilitation. If we can go to the zoning. Oh, I'm on slide 16, sorry. Thank you. The highlights of the zoning bylaw amendment that's proposed It would allow a licensed pit as a permitted use. It would allow recycling of aggregate as an additional permitted use. It would allow a reduced setback of 30 meters to 15 meters from the boundary of the wetland. It would impose a new setback from an archaeological site being 10 meters, and it would impose increased setbacks for processing or aggregate recycling operations being 250 meters from property boundaries. Next slide, please. Within the report that's been prepared, I've grouped the sections of comments for the Aggregate Resources Act into these categories. And I just wanted to take some time to read through what some of those say. These are mostly informed through staff's reading of the documents as they exist, but also through the peer review process. So it would be important to ensure that there's a condition for transportation, that truck access is only via County Road 20. And further, where there's some discrepancy on the site plans showing truck access via berms on Patterson's Corners or O'Neill Road, that those be removed, and that any existing accesses that would overlap with proposed berm construction would be relocated so that all berms are continuous as proposed as a mitigation measure. And then also for transportation, it should be, the traffic impact study should be updated in relation to the comments that were received from the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville.
Can I pause you again? I
Yep.
really apologize for jumping in here before you get to the recommendations. Help me understand what is not contained or is not addressed through an OPA or a Z, the what we call recommendation conditions, recommended conditions. How were they developed and why are they necessary? Very simply, if the OPA amendments and the zoning bylaw amendments don't cover it, why are there additional conditions? What's the
Sure.
help me work my way through why there's an additional recommendations.
Yeah, no problem. It's a good question. So I would say there's like two fields of approval that are going on here. There's the land use planning control, which is the official plan amendment and zoning amendment that's being requested. So that deals with the use of land, what uses are permitted, where those uses are located, how far they might have to operate from a property boundary, those types of things. So land use controls and where they're regulated. The Related Aggregate Resources Act application, it's a process where North Grenville is a commenting agency. And so as a staff person, taking all the peer reviews, reading all the reports, looking at the site plans that have been prepared, reading through those things and picking out things that have been highlighted as things that should be operational considerations. So zoning deals with the planning, the use of land, and where things are located. And the operational aspect are things that go into the Aggregate Resources Act license comments. I hope that clarifies.
Somewhat, thank you. There's a lot to get through, and I appreciate your presentation and the summary of your report, because the report is fairly dense too for the average person. So I do appreciate all the work that you put into this, Deputy Director. So forgive me for trying to stick-handle my way through all the complexity of this file.
As far as hydrogeological conditions go, there is some work that was done on the water reports. And so the fact that the property overlies a highly vulnerable aquifer and significant groundwater recharge area, baseline water quality sampling should be conducted. And it should be acknowledged that some kind of monitoring is needed as a regular requirement. And this is important considering that ground and surface water are progressing in a southwesterly direction towards the retained wetland. Other highlights is that any results of monitoring would be disclosed to the municipality on a regular basis, so suggested quarterly, based on the peer review comments that have come back. And that if at some point in the future, it's not proposed as a dewatered pit, but if it was to be, that there'd have to be a reassessment of the radius of influence, and that would be submitted prior to any dewatering occurring. And there's a complaints response procedure that's been developed by the proponent, and that would be provided to the municipality prior to extraction occurring at the proposed pit. So we'd understand what's involved with that if there's a complaint with respect to a well. For environmental conditions.
Well, let me stop you there.
Okay.
And the applicant will have an opportunity to present as well before we get into people for and against the application. From what I understand, our existing OP, which is dated 2018 and was consolidated or in 2023, that are, as far as hydrogeology, ROP permits the municipality to request a report, but doesn't mandate it. And it doesn't prescribe the scope of that report, nor does it cross-reference the wellhead protection areas mapped in, I believe it's their Schedule A. So there's no requirement for the municipality to commission an independent peer review of the applicant's reports. Is that correct? Or
I think
maybe
if I
I'm
understand the
misreading-
question-
Misreading. Yeah, I'm asking whether we require through ROP 2018 to have their hydrogeological report cross-reference our wellhead protection areas. That's the first part of my question.
I would say I possibly the hydrogeologist will speak to this when the applicant gets up to speak, but
Yeah,
my
okay.
understanding is that the report has considered the groundwater, the highly vulnerable aquifer and significant groundwater recharge areas within it.
Okay. And is it true that we don't commission independent peer review of that report?
I think if I understand the question, that's not true because we've
Okay.
requested peer reviews of several of the studies,
Okay.
the hydrogeological being one.
Well, there's a review, but do we have our own municipal?
We do not have a
independent review?
hydrogeologist on staff.
No. But do we go to do we contract a consultant to review their report?
Yes, in the case of this application, the report has been prepared by the firm WSP,
Right.
and it was peer reviewed by Aegis, who's done hydrogeological work for North Grenville in the past.
Okay. And both at our expense or at the applicant's expense?
Applicants.
Okay. Thank you.
In terms of environmental conditions, it should be explicitly stated that there's no surface water connection between the aggregate pond with the offsite wetland during operations and rehabilitation, except under unforeseen flood events. All environmental setbacks should be clearly demarcated in the field to ensure setbacks to the wetland are maintained by on-site operators. Erosion and sediment control plans are to be implemented in accordance with the report that's been prepared on the natural environment. Limits on vegetation clearing to comply with the Migratory Birds Convention Act. Blandings turtles exclusion fencing as required by the Natural Environment Report. That species at risk training programs and encounter protocols be provided for staff who are working at the site, and that standard best management practices be implemented to reduce dust and noise, and that they will continue during the operation of the project. In terms of operational conditions recommended based on the findings of all of these documents, it is that broadband reverse alarms should be implemented for on-site equipment to minimize noise impacts, that all berms be established even in the absence of certain sensitive receptors. So some of the properties that surround the pit don't have homes that have been built upon them. And so some of the berm wording within the site plan suggested that they be conditional berms or only established if a sensitive use is there. But in the opinion of staff, these should be established regardless of whether that use, the home is there, partially because it's adjacent to a settlement area. And it would just be a good practice based on the proposed mitigation of other reports that have been prepared. Then all plans would need to be updated with these details, and all plans should be updated to state that mature vegetation along the perimeter would be maintained, and that whenever trees are removed, that they're replaced with similar tree species. Related to noise, if required due to persistent complaints with noise, an audit of noise should be prepared by a qualified professional at the sole cost and expense of the operator, with confirmation of compliance with the license and conditions being confirmed. Noise mitigation measures should be confirmed by a qualified acoustic consultant prior to the pit becoming operational. And this is specifically regarding the cutter suction dredge and other implements that would be on site. And that a detailed NPC 300 study be carried out before extraction occurs, and with any findings being implemented into the operational plan. And finally, just from a general perspective, that anytime any report is updated, that as a condition of the ARI license, a copy would be provided to the municipality, that a copy of the license itself would be provided to the municipality to ensure compliance with the submitted drawings, reports, conditions, that anything that is submitted in addition to what's been submitted to this point would be updated based on peer review findings prior to the pit becoming operational, that the rehabilitation plan would include restoration to an agricultural condition, that vegetation be implemented, again, as stated above, and that the rehabilitation plan note that future development area is to be returned to the agricultural condition. So with that, we can proceed to the recommendations. Based on all of this, it is the opinion of staff that the submitted materials have demonstrated consistency with the required policies and approval process, and approval should be given subject to the noted conditions of the ARA license process. That's staff's primary recommendation, but if we please go to the next slide. I just wanted to state that council obviously has options, and that could be an approval of the Planning Act applications, but deferring any passing of comments on the ARA license process, not approving the application, which is not recommended based on policy consistency that could open the municipality up to legal costs or other situations. You could also hold the public meeting but defer a decision. Again, this is not recommended, but it's an option. And that concludes the formal report. So I'm happy to answer questions, but I know that the agent is here and there's some technical experts tonight who could probably best answer some of the specific questions.
I have a final question before we invite the applicant up. And it's a process question. The ARA license, the conditions that we would be adding to the ARA license before it's being granted, how is compliance enforced? In other words, these conditions, how do they prove that they've met these conditions, and how is it checked?
It's a good question, Deputy Mayor. Primarily, it's enforced through the Ministries of Natural Resources and Ministry of Environment.
All right. Thank you very much for summarizing what is a great file. Yes. And I can't see. Oh, there she is. But I've got something on my screen that, there we go, it disappears. Madam Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for chairing tonight's meeting. I think you can hear me okay. Is that correct?
Loud and clear.
Okay. I'm sure it's very loud. I was looking to have Mr. Mosher explain through you the proposed reduced setback of 30 meters to 15 meters to a water course water body. And of course, I recognize that Mr. Mosher spoke of the recharge area for the vulnerable aquifer. And I'm curious to see why we wouldn't, and I assume this is part of the peer review study, but I apologize if I didn't catch it. If we have such a sensitive, shallow aquifer supplying a lot of wells in the area, it's not evident to me why we'd want to reduce the setback versus increasing the setback. So I'd appreciate an explanation on that particular point.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. I'll speak about it from a layman's perspective, but I know that the hydrogeological expert's here and he might be able to better speak to it. But setbacks to the wetland area itself as a surface water feature are proposed to be reduced, and this is as recommended by the environmental impact statement and the qualified biologist who assessed the wetland. The wetland itself does not meet provincial significance requirements, and so didn't score for that. Further, the reduced setback allows the pit to extract as much of the resource as possible, as close to market as possible, which is a requirement of the PPS. The EIS and the findings of it were peer reviewed by a biologist. So it was WSP who did the original report, and we hired Gemtech to peer review those findings. Mr. Drew Paulus, a qualified biologist, reviewed it and found that the findings were acceptable from a biologist's perspective. Yes, surface and groundwater features are linked, but in this instance, my understanding of it as a planner is that a reduced setback to the wetland feature itself is not something that would impact groundwater.
Do you have a supplemental?
Certainly, I do on another matter and look forward to potentially hearing from the expert in the room. I recognize Mr. Mosher, obviously, you're not trained in that area, so of course I don't want to put you on the spot for any follow-up. I'm happy to defer to the experts in regards to the hydrogeology in particular. Just another item that comes up, of course, is noise, and we've heard a lot from residents who are concerned about the potential impact of noise. And I can see from one of the reports, it talks about the proposed suction dredge noise and the need for certain controls to enable enforcement. And I wonder, Mr. Mosher, if you have any comment on that in regards to your recommendations for the application.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, those things were pointed out through the acoustic assessment that was prepared by Freefield Engineering and then peer
Mhm.
reviewed by KBM on behalf of North Grenville. And so this specific comment that there be there's specific noise mitigation measures proposed for the cutter suction dredge that are identified in the Freefield report, and then just identified that prior to the pit becoming operational, those controls should be verified to be, as I understand it, in good working order by a qualified professional, and to ensure that they do the muffling job that they need to ensure that the sound is reduced.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave it there for now, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, I'll just look to Councillor O'Sullivan if she has any questions at this point before I. Okay. Okay, so now the committee will hear from the applicant, followed by members of the public who wish to speak either for or against the proposal. So is the applicant interested? Okay, please come to the deputation table and state your name. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name's Neil DeRuyter. I'm a planner with MHBC Planning. I'm joined here up at the podium with Craig Bellinger from Tomlinson. We've also got with us Chris Marentet, who's a hydrogeologist with WSP. We've prepared a presentation that covers many of the items that Mr. Mosher covered, but I wanted to specifically highlight a few things specific to our related Aggregate Resource Act license application. If the clerk is able to pull that presentation up.
And while we're looking for it, I should note that we've got a clock up here, and this would apply to anybody coming to the delegation table tonight. We've got a lot of people who want to be heard, and so we're just trying to make sure that there's time for everyone to comment. Yep. Is that it? As we sift through all the attendees, I think public can appreciate the amount of work that went into dealing with this file and all the required studies, et cetera. That's not it? Is it a PowerPoint or a PDF?
Should be a PDF.
Thank you for your patience while we get that up. Just for me, could you state your first names again? Because I'll be asking for them eventually. Is that Phil? No.
No, Deputy Mayor. My name's Neil.
Neil.
And this is Craig.
Okay, right. Right.
And Chris is the hydrogeologist
yeah.
sitting in the front row.
Great. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I'm just making sure that you can hear me. I can't hear anyone speaking.
That's because we're looking for a file, Madam Mayor.
Great.
You
Okay,
don't see-
perfect.
You don't see all the activity, behind the scenes here.
I don't. Thank you.
Just so you know, we've stopped the clock.
I was going to ask Deputy Mayor, but thank you for doing that. And thank you to staff for pulling up the presentation. We really appreciate that. I'm just going to have Craig say a few opening words on behalf of Tomlinson.
Thank you. Tomlinson is a third-generation family-owned business originating out of Manotick and Eastern Ontario now growth. We specialize in transportation, infrastructure, construction materials, aggregate, environmental services, and recycling. We employ between 1,500 to 2,000 employees with the company, which has spawned that there's multiple areas of growth and innovation in the company across Ontario. Thank you.
Could I, we'll stop the clock here. Could I just ask a question of you, Craig? Tomlinson, where would, you're running a business, so I don't know if this is germane, but I'm curious, where does Tomlinson intend to sell this aggregate once it's extracted? What are the markets? I note in Deputy Director Mosher's presentation that, there's the rationale behind, local pits is to bring it to market. And I just assumed it was a local market, but you must have other markets.
Mr. Mayor, or Deputy Mayor. So essentially the material is used in asphalt and concrete. So those plants are in the city of Ottawa, but as you know, the material is also used throughout North Grenville right now and Kempville on Highway 43 with major construction there. So that material, although going to plants that we don't have in North Grenville, does get shipped back in a sense because it's blended into materials to make construction material. And that's used for asphalt and concrete and so on. So it is used throughout many different municipalities, including Ottawa and North Grenville. Thank you.
And the actual aggregate, gravel? I mean,
It's-
you talk about concrete and asphalt, but what about just gravel?
Yeah, so it's sand essentially that we're pulling out of this site, and the sand is admixture in asphalt and concrete. So it goes into that to produce. So there's cement in concrete, there's water, and there's aggregates. Aggregates consist of gravel and sand. So sand is one of the components that go into that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Just
Mr. Mayor.
curious. Thanks.
Next slide, please. Just to give the perspective on the site location, and I'll go through this quickly given Mr. Mosher's presentation. We've highlighted the proposed pit in red, specifically here identifying where the proposed truck route is for the pit. So trucks would leave the pit on County Road 20 and head east to the 416. And I'll touch on a few of the specific traffic related items and certainly some of the things that we've heard from the community in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So there's multiple applications required in order to permit this pit. I wanted to really focus in on the Aggregate Resource Act license application, which is a separate but very related process. So essentially, the license application includes all the required studies and importantly, a site plan that captures all the recommendations from those studies and then outlines the conditions for both operating and rehabilitating the pit. So all that materials goes on the site plan. If the license were to be approved through the Ministry of Natural Resources, it is then an enforceable document under the Aggregate Resource Act. A couple specific things on this pit itself. It is in an area that's identified for containing high-quality aggregate. There are other pits within this area. There's just under 8 million tons of high-quality sand material at this site. Next slide, please. As part of the pit operations, there's proposed to be 5 phases, and essentially the pit has to operate sequentially, meaning that as the pit is progressing through, it would start in phase 1, which is toward the south, move to phase 2, and then head towards the north half of the site within phases 3, 4, and 5. Any areas that are not being extracted will remain in agricultural use. The processing area that's identified with the circle there, the WP identified as wash plant, that is going to be located in phase 1. That's the area in which it's been identified. And part of the reasoning for selecting that location is that it's furthest from neighboring homes, and it's also closest for where trucks can then access the materials that are produced there and to deliver them out onto County Road 20. Next slide, please. These are a couple visual renderings. These for members of the public, they would have seen these boards at our open house yesterday. Essentially, what we're trying to do is try to give a snapshot in time for what the pit operation would look like based upon the proposed site plan. So the one on the left shows extraction occurring in phases 1 and 2 with the processing plant set up. And then the image on the right is as extraction proceeds into phase 3. We're really trying to give an idea of conceptually what this pit would look like. And ultimately, and certainly one of the key things that we've discussed with the community is, this pit operation will be operating for a few decades. This is not the type of operation that would be done in 5 years. It will take time for both Tomlinson to set up this pit operation if it were to be approved, and then sequentially work through the phases itself. Certainly, we know with respect to the homes on O'Neill Road and Patterson Corners Road, that area of the site would be extracted last. And all of this is sort of taken into consideration with respect to things like the noise study, the water resources study with respect to how the site is phased. Next slide, please. This is another rendering. We wanted to give an idea conceptually of what it would look like. Specifically, this is the corner of O'Neill and Patterson Corners Roads. In the background there, you can see the proposed berm, which is about 5 meters in height. Mr. Mosher explained a bit about the conditions on the site plan regarding the tree screens. There are quite a few mature tree screens that border this property. Part of that is effective for specifically use in visual mitigation as well as dust mitigation. And the idea is that those trees are to be retained, and that any areas where trees are removed, that they're replanted, and that the berm would then be placed behind those trees. Next slide, please. Again, this is a conceptual rendering to help explain what the rehabilitation plan would look like. So this is once extraction is fully complete and the site is rehabilitated. Roughly in the middle of the site, there's around an 18-hectare lake. Around the edges of the lake, there will be what we call shallow shoreline areas, as well as wetlands that will be created. And then the lands along O'Neill Road and Patterson Corners Road would be rehabilitated to agriculture. Next slide, please. Mr. Mosher went through the study, so given the 5 minutes left, I want to keep going through some of the other items. Next slide, please. Specifically wanted to highlight a few of the key areas of the studies, and starting with the traffic study. As I mentioned at the beginning, the haul route would be County Road 20 to the Highway 416. The main truck entrance is proposed on a County Road 20. We've currently got this on the site plan, but trucks would not be permitted to use any of the existing accesses on O'Neill Road and Patterson's Corners Road. County Road 20 is an existing truck route. The municipality recently identified it as a preferred truck route. That is where trucks are to be going, and that is the route that is proposed for this project. The traffic study found that the existing transportation infrastructure can accommodate the projected increase in traffic. With respect to natural environment, there's no significant natural features identified on the site. And there are setbacks in place to protect the adjacent wetland. Certainly, maybe after the presentation, we can have the hydrogeologist speak with respect to the mayor's question on the setbacks and how that wetland would be protected. Next slide, please. With respect to water resources, the study determined that groundwater will not be impacted by pit operations. There is what's known as both a groundwater and surface water monitoring program that will be implemented. Monitoring has been occurring on this site since 2021. Essentially, there's monitoring wells that have been installed around the site to help identify the water table elevation, and certainly those will be key items used in the monitoring to determine as the pit's extracting to detect any changes with respect to groundwater levels. With respect to noise, the noise study determined that the pit operations are predicted to satisfy the ministry sound level limits. As I noted, the processing plant where the highest level of activity would occur with this pit is located furthest from nearby residences. Certainly for the noise, the key mitigation measure is berms, but also putting on conditions with respect to the type of operating equipment that would be on site. Next slide, please. There's two slides here. I think Mr. Mosher covered them, so just in the interest of time, we can go through those. So next slide, please. Next slide. All I would just note on those two slides is that the official plan and the zoning do identify it as an area of containing high quality aggregate. As I mentioned earlier, there are pits in the nearby area. And so the presence of that sand is reflected within the municipality's official plan and zoning bylaw. Mr. Mosher mentioned the expert peer reviews. To the deputy mayor's question, yes, the municipality has the authority to require peer reviews, and certainly that was exercised in this case with respect to noise, water, and the natural environment report. I'd also wanted to note through the Aggregate Resource Act license application, we have several ministries reviewing it. A couple that I specifically want to highlight is Ministry of Natural Resources. They look at it from the perspective of the site plan, the operations, rehabilitation. They also have biologists and a hydrogeologist is reviewing it. Ministry of Environment, it's threefold. There's both surface water and groundwater engineers review it, but then also biologists from the Species at Risk Division. And then we've also engaged with the Conservation Authority with respect to the application among the other agencies listed on this application. What I specifically want to note with this, the Aggregate Resource Act license process certainly provides us with the form of ensuring all the work that's been undertaken with these studies is reviewed and that those recommendations are assessed to determine whether or not these reviewers have any questions or outstanding concerns. It is not uncommon in my experience doing these types of license applications that we get comments back. Certainly we've received comments from the public. The site plan that we put forward, which is intended to regulate the operation and rehabilitation, will be, a document that will be changed as we get these comments and work through the comments. And certainly we've encouraged the public to submit their comments. Several already have. Certainly the form to get feedback through that. So in closing, as I see that the countdown getting down there, I appreciate the chance, and Tomlinson certainly supports the staff recommendation to approve the official plan amendment and rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. And since there were questions about the hydrogeological study, and you suggested that maybe Chris I'll allow him to come up following this presentation for a few minutes. Maybe, I don't know if we can reset the clock for 5. Is 5 minutes enough time? Well, not to answer questions, to talk to the questions that have already been asked of the mayor and
the scope of our work that we undertook in 5 minutes.
Sure.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. But we'll be gracious with our time.
So as a hydrogeologist retained on this project, our responsibility is to assess the effects of developing and rehabilitating a pit and its effects on groundwater. Effects on groundwater relative to the adjacent wetland and effects on groundwater relevant to adjoining private water supply wells. And so our investigation included the drilling of 8 boreholes on the property. Number one, it was to identify that there is a marketable sand and gravel resource present. And number two, we install monitoring wells in the boreholes that will allow us to measure water levels. In this case, it was done monthly. And as Neil mentioned, that monitoring started in 2021. So we've got 4 or 5 years of monitoring data. So we have a good background database. So we understand now that the site is a superficial sand and gravel deposit that is underlain at shallow depth. A few meters down is the water table. It's pretty common in Eastern Ontario, that situation. And Tomlinson will then, should they receive a license, they will undertake the removal of the sand and gravel resource. It's primarily sand. Sand, and as you go deeper, it gets silty, but it's about 8 meters on average depth. And they will remove that material. But unlike a quarry that has to stay dry and it's dewatered and they pump water out and keep everything in the dry, a pit, they remove the material with various forms of excavating equipment. The material is removed in the wet. So they excavate the material, set it on adjacent to the pit, allow it to drain, and then process it as need be for the market. There is no dewatering. So there's no lowering of the water table as a result of the removal of the sand and gravel, okay? Pit below water, but they don't dewater. So as some of the renderings showed, as the pit operates through phase 1 and 2, it leaves a little lake area behind, okay? As a result, it's easier to show this with figures, but the groundwater flow direction is from the northeast part of the site to the southwest towards the wetland. No big surprise. And basically the groundwater, the wetland is fed by groundwater from the site as well as rainfall and precipitation and snow melt and that of that type. One of the things that happens as a result of a pit, under existing conditions, we have a sloping water table in the sand and the sand moves across the site to the southwest. When you remove the sand material, you create a lake and a lake is flat. It's not sloping. So we're gonna, on one end of the site, near the intersection of Patterson's Corners and O'Neill, we're gonna have a slight lowering of the water table from what's there today. And adjacent to the wetland, we're gonna have a slight rising of the water table as it rotates to a flooded lake now, okay? And that change is about a meter and 1.3 meter change, going down near the corner of O'Neill and Patterson and going up slightly near the wetland. That's the effect that it has. So there is effect, but it's the lake leveling effect, not because they're pumping water out of the pit. And so what we do is we have to then look at how far off site does that effect propagate. 1.3 adjacent to the pit, but how far off site does it go back to 0? And we come up with that estimate. It's about, there's a number of ways we do it. It's about 80 meters away from the pit till we get to no effect. And what we then do is we look at that area and we look at the position of the private residents and their wells and try to have to make a determination on whether that lowering of the water table in the sand will have any effect on anybody's private well. And the answer in this case is it won't, because all of the wells in this area are drilled wells into the bedrock at some depth below the sand and gravel that Tomlinson will be excavating. So we're altering the water table in the upper 3 to 4 meters below ground, but all the wells in the area are drilled on average about 20 some odd meters or more into rock. So people are obtaining their water at depth from the rock, and we're causing an alteration in the water table in the very near surface environment, okay? So that's how we come to the conclusion that there is no potential for the pit operation to affect the quantity or quality of water in somebody's well, okay? But that being said, that's a prediction, and as Neil mentioned, we've been doing a monitoring program for 5 years now. That monitoring program will continue throughout the life of the pit itself, and an annual report gets prepared. And the purpose of the monitoring is to confirm that the predictions made at the time of licensing are accurate, okay? So that's the checks and balances on it. And that annual reports get submitted to the various provincial ministries and in some cases reviewed and things of that nature. So I
Great.
hope that touches on it. It took more than 5 minutes. though.
No, that's fine. Before I go to Madam Mayor, who's got a question,
Sure.
I assume, unless that's a legacy hand, and, okay, speakers, yeah, before I go to Madam Mayor and Councillor O'Sullivan, Chris, how many, you said you've got 8 bore
8
wells,
holes were drilled.
all on the property,
Yeah, spread.
not outside of the property?
No, we work
Okay,
on the
yeah,
property that we have
right,
access
yeah.
to. But,
So, do you look at cumulative effects of other pits nearby?
well, typically we would, but as I say, the effect of our pit beyond the property boundary is only about 80 meters. All the other pits are further away than that, okay? If that's what you're talking about,
Yeah.
cumulative effects of pits.
Right,
It's a bit different. Pits typically have very minimal effect on the water table. But it's different for a quarry and bedrock. You create because you keep a 30-meter hole in the ground kept dry, you create drawdown that could extend hundreds of meters off site. And that's where you have a greater potential for quarries that tend to be clustered together where the rock's near surface to interact and overlap. And so cumulative effects there, we're usually assessing them on almost all quarry applications. But pits are very localized in the effects they have. And there's no other pit close enough to us that we would interact with, meaning the drawdown effects from our operations would overlap, causing a cumulative effect.
I see. Madam Mayor, is your question for Tomlinson, Chris, or Neil, or Craig? Go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. Again, because a lot of the concerns we've heard are in part about the water table and a vulnerable recharge area. I was wading my way through a couple of the peer review reports, and it seemed to indicate, and forgive me, I'm not an expert in this area. Some of this documentation has only come to us very recently, but one of the reports highlighted that the modeling for the cutter suction dredge was at 2.5 meters relative elevation. However, it was indicated that the water table could be as high as 107.3 MASL in some pit locations and 105.5 in others. So again, as someone again who's relatively new to some of these details, I'm curious to better understand what appears to be competing or inaccurate assumptions in maximum predicted water table depth or height. And I'd like to better understand why that would have been flagged in one of the key reports. And I refer in this case to the Freefield response, which looked at some, I think, analyses of the maximum predicted water table report assumptions. So again, this is an area where I'm fairly new, as I think almost all of my council colleagues are, in terms of trying to better appreciate some of the concerns we're hearing and where studies may have flagged particular items, and I don't pretend to have enough expertise to understand the response that was provided by Freefield or even the original concern.
I'm going to speak to the maximum predicted water table. Madam Mayor, I can, being the hydrogeologist, I can't speak for Freefield, but I can speak to the maximum predicted water table report, which the main report we prepare is the water report. It's a hydrogeology report on the effects of the pit. That's our primary document. And then it's just because of the way the MNR restructured the reporting requirements back in 2020. From that, we have to prepare a secondary document. It's much shorter. It's the max predicted water table report because the MNR wants to know what is the highest water table that you as an applicant measure on the site during the period of time you're monitoring. And typically, the ministry requires you to monitor for water levels for 1 year before application. In this case, we've got 5 years, just by the way the application played out. So what we do, we then go through, we have like 60 months of water level data. We go through and it's always, usually the spring in April, where at 1 year, we have the highest water level measurements recorded. And they tend to be almost at all the monitoring wells, because if you rainfall and snow melt, the water table rises. And I think it was April 2023 that we saw that. And we then have to look at the water level at all of the monitoring wells, and we contour it, we identify flow direction, and we say, this is the highest water table configuration that we measured in all the months we've been monitoring. And it's a really brief report, extracted from the other report, but the ministry requires it because that's the one that MHBC planning would put on the site plans as the highest set of water levels measured on the site. Just so you know the maximum predicted water table report is an extract from the water, and it's pretty straightforward, okay, based on the monitoring data. Okay.
Deputy Mayor, quick follow-up.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't speak to.
So one of the other concerns that we're hearing is that with the creation of a water body, if you will, the opportunity for evaporation of a certain amount of water is higher, right? Owing to fundamental principles of how water evaporates into the air, which could diminish the recharge area for the existing water supply for some of the wells. We've heard anecdotally that sometimes other pits in the area or in parts of Eastern Ontario, by virtue of the topography and the heavy amount of bedrock, have created unintended vulnerabilities in terms of wells just going dry or being compromised, right, in terms of how they historically functioned over time. So it wasn't evident to me that this was fully addressed in any of the reports that I was able to review at the time I had available, but I'm wondering if you can speak to that aspect. I recognize that the reports you've done based upon the monitoring are very specific and scoped in a particular kind of way, but obviously on behalf of the community, we are hearing from folks who are concerned that by changing the general topography of the area, we're creating other conditions for the evaporation of water or the redirection of water that could ultimately affect wells in the area. I think you understand, and I've had the benefit through the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, where there was an extensive aggregate study done of some additional conversation where we did talk about vulnerable recharge areas, and we know that in North Grenville that is a reality in many of the rural parts of our community, and I think for lots of different reasons this is a focal point of some of the concerns we're hearing, and it would be helpful for me to better understand the 10,000-foot picture on how, once you change the topography of the land and you introduce effectively a body of water, how is that contributing or not contributing to effectively less water available to these private wells?
The private wells in the area, as I mentioned earlier, are drilled into the underlying bedrock. So they're drawing water from a bedrock aquifer, as opposed to the effects that the pit would have are in the near surface shallow water table in the sand and gravel. So much of the water derived from those the bedrock wells, depending on how deep they are various steps in the bedrock. And with so there's no really relationship between what goes on in the near surface sand environment and what would ultimately be the availability of water in these drilled bedrock wells. So there's really no concern with impacting the water quantity in bedrock wells. When you speak of wells going dry, that's more common. You might see that where in a quarry environment, if there's wells next to a quarry, it's dewatered and things of that nature, because the quarry is operating in the rock and the people are obtaining water from the rock. So they're in the same geological unit, which isn't the case here. You mentioned vulnerable aquifer and significant recharge area. It's defined as that because we got a near surface sand deposit, and in sand, it's permeable. precipitation infiltrates into the subsurface, and that's why they call it a recharge area. And so anytime you have coarse sandy and gravel materials near surface, they're going to be mapped as recharge areas, and they are vulnerable from a release of contaminants. So that's where that term vulnerable aquifer comes in, because there isn't like a clay layered surface that prevents, if there's an automobile accident, oil leaks, getting into the subsurface. It's a permeable near surface environment. And with a pit, the action of removing sand and gravel is really a mechanical process, and processing it, there are no chemicals used. So there's not a lot of chemicals used on site that have the potential to adversely impact water quality in that shallow aquifer. Okay. And if I miss
Deputy Mayor, can I just ask one follow-up, and then I'd like to defer to my other colleague in the room, if that's okay.
Yeah, good.
And thank you. And of course, we appreciate all of the information and analyses. My understanding, and again, having had the benefit of being around the county council table where we had extensive discussions on aggregate, my understanding is recharge areas are designed or function so that water is replenished for, obviously those wells, and for other ecological reasons where you'd want to ensure an abundance of water. So I guess I'm still struggling to understand. I hear what you're saying, that the water is below the bedrock. So from your perspective, any extraction of sand wouldn't necessarily affect the water available below the bedrock. But I'm confused about then the function of a recharge area, because I thought one of the functions was as rain comes into contact with the surface and water permeates downwards, there would be some relationship between the potential activity in terms of extracting sand or other materials, and how that water flows to replenish recharge areas. And again, I'm not an expert, so I'm just trying to make my way through some of the conversations I've had at the county's table, as well as some of the concerns we've heard from the community in regards to this application.
Okay, Madam Mayor, let me take a different approach. Earlier you mentioned, or council mentioned something, there's an adjacent wetland, okay? And so you're right. Precipitation and snow melt on the sand and gravel deposit that Tomlinson proposed to extract, water infiltrates. And what's going to happen under the current conditions today, water from the area on the site that they propose to extract is flowing into the ground and moving towards that wetland feature adjacent to it. The water level in that wetland is approximately elevation 101 to about 103, okay, the water table and the groundwater. And on the existing site, the water elevations are much higher. So under current conditions, water on the pit site, proposed pit site, flows to the wetland. When the pit is fully extracted and rehabilitated, the elevation of the lake will be about 106 meters above sea level. And it will still be above the water level in the wetland, and it will still continue to recharge that wetland. Sometimes
Okay, I'll leave it there, Deputy Mayor, for now. Thank you. I appreciate all the answers. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will move away from water, although definitely water is a very sincere concern that I have about this and what effect it will have. But I would like to move to the traffic impact. I was at the information session last night, and I've also read the documents that you've sent. And I also did a little drive down County Road 20. And I note that County Road 20 does not have paved shoulders. And it doesn't have the lines buffering even the side of the pavement. So I have a big concern. I believe Tomlinson as a company is very aware that the municipality of North Grenville is very keen on active transportation by the building of the MUPs on both sides of the new expansion of County Road 43, that it is very important to us that it's safe for our residents to walk or cycle on the roads. And County Road 20 is a county road. The county road, or United Counties of Leeds Grenville, has an active transportation plan that was from 2022, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And it does talk about, at that time, they had, at the time that study or that report was written, they had 74.8 kilometers of paved road. Sorry, that plan was April of 2022. And they proposed to have 482.6 kilometers on county roads of paved shoulders with buffering. They have some charts in that report that do show separation for safe pedestrians and cyclists, especially on truck routes. They did mention 30 trucks per hour, which I think is excessive. That's definitely not particularly safe for someone who's walking or cycling on the side of a road. That is, and in your document, 20, the worst case scenario was 26 trucks, which is one truck every 2.5 minutes. So it's really difficult to walk any distance in 2.5 minutes. You can get a little further on your bicycle, but. And then when I looked at your traffic impact study, I see, I don't know, was it peer reviewed, the traffic impact study?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Sullivan, United Counties are reviewing it. Whether or not they've sent it out for external peer review, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure if staff are aware of that question.
Okay, thank you. Well, you won't get a peer review from me, but you will get a critical research review on it, because I'm really into health and safety, and active transportation is a passion of mine. And actually, I'd like to acknowledge that the co-chair of the Health, Wellness, Fitness, and Active Transportation Committee, Tanya Deans, is present in the room, because it's very important to our committee that we really help make and keep North Grenville safe for our residents. So when I look at your traffic impact study, I noticed that the studies were done on Thursday, December 18th, 2025, between 6:30 and 9:30 in the morning, and 3:30 and 6:30 at night. Now, I would like to point out that you noted there were no pedestrians and no cyclists. It's not surprising, really. This was December 18th. It's dusk and dawn at those two times. Nobody's going to be out cycling or walking when it's almost dark. And they were all done at turning sites only. So none of those studies were done in Oxford Station, where people live a lot. And there's residential subdivisions in there, and the store is on the corner, and there was not one study done near a residential area. So that really disappoints me. So if it was peer review and a peer didn't pick that up, I picked it up. And it's very disappointing, almost insulting, that you noted there was no pedestrians and no cyclists December 18th, really. So I don't think it's a valid sample. I don't think that's worth its weight. It's almost the shortest day of the year. It's just not representative of reality. So I am worried about that, and I think we need to make sure that the United Counties has an opportunity to do what they say they're going to do and expand on paved shoulders and safety for pedestrians, cyclists, anybody who wants to simply go for a walk, even out to their mailbox. It's just, that's a lot of truck traffic, and you're not the only show on the road, because there is a pit on Smith Road. Those trucks come down Smith Road and then they go down County Road 20. Harvick's also trucks from down County Road 20. So the number cumulatively could be certainly more than 26 an hour, which is still too much. Even down to scenario 3 in your report, 18 trucks an hour is 1 every 3 minutes. And I don't think you can walk very far in 3 minutes without having a big truck go by you. And there's no shoulder on that road. So it's just absolutely not safe. So I have comments on other health and safety concerns, but that's my comment on the traffic. So, thank you.
Thank you. Before you respond, I think Deputy. Okay, let's talk about terms of engagement here. This is not a rally. I understand people feel passionate about it, but we're here to share information, and out of respect to the applicant, if you can curb your enthusiasm, as they might say, that'd be appreciated. I'm not going to get rid of you if you don't adhere to it, but I just want to say that at this first instance. You're more than welcome to respond, but let's try and stay civilized about this whole thing. So Deputy Director Mosher, I think you want to weigh in before they respond.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I just wanted to point out that the comments received from the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, I don't believe they are peer reviewing it, but they had some of the similar comments that you've had, Councillor O'Sullivan, in terms of the December traffic analysis. And so they provided those comments on and had requested updates to that traffic impact assessment.
Did you want to respond to Councillor O'Sullivan?
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan, and thank you for coming last night to the open house. We'll compile this and give that to the traffic consultant, certainly hear where you're coming from. And what I can say back to council is, we heard a lot, of discussion last night about, pedestrians on County Road 20, cyclists, the importance of how trucks interact in Oxford Station with other uses. As Mr. Mosher noted, the counties has picked up on some of those things. So right now the ball would be in our traffic consultant's court, to respond to those questions and clarification items. In the case we have, County Road 20 is a truck route, right? And it is a preferred truck route. And that's not to suggest that the safety of pedestrians or any other users of the road is not taken into account. Certainly all the information, that we get through this process, and, I know Tomlinson would be more than happy to share the information with the counties directly as well, right? As it relates to, any future works related to County Road 20. The one thing I would note just on, the plan improvements, and certainly that number that the counties has is ambitious, right? With respect to a pit like this, and just like any other pit or quarry within North Grenville, there is a levy that's paid to both the municipality and the counties. And while I don't think it's written in stone this way, the idea is to help with managing road infrastructure. Certainly things like this can be looked at, but I appreciate you going through the traffic study in that detail. And I totally see where you're coming from on December. I don't think anybody would be, should be, inferring as a result of that means there's no activity or active transportation activity. So we are happy to share with the traffic consultant, and certainly we got to get the responses into the county's questions from the roads division as well, so we can make sure that they have that to respond to.
I don't see any questions from the mayor. Before we turn it over to the public for comments, I did have a question back to water studies, and I understand that part of the technical basis for staff to evaluate the application includes water table studies. I think they're called, well, you would know what they are, water table report that was completed in December, and the maximum predicted water table report. This is what you were referring to in your comments. But my question is to Deputy Director Mosher. So this is the technical basis in which staff evaluates and they are, but we don't, do we do an independent municipal analysis or of those reports? I know we don't have the depth necessarily on staff, but do we go out for review independent of the report that we receive from the applicant?
Yes, so it's a good question, Deputy Mayor. So I received the report. I review them. I have my notes here that you're welcome to review if you'd like. They're my non-hydrogeologist notes, and then we send that for peer review, those two documents for peer review, which was peer reviewed by Aegis in this case.
But it's not an independent municipal review. In other words, it's a review that is paid for by Tomlinson. Is that right?
That's correct. We deal with the invoices. So the way it works for us procedurally is we retain a peer reviewer and say, hey, is this work that you could take on? And based on their qualifications, they review and they respond. And then they bill us, the municipality, and we pay them. And then we pass a flow-through invoice to Tomlinson, who pays that bill. So there's no exchange of funds from Tomlinson to the peer reviewer.
Thank you for that explanation. Back to my script. Thank you for your indulgence. Now, the committee will, unless there are no more questions.
Deputy Mayor?
So, yes, there is one. Madam Mayor.
I'm so
go ahead.
sorry. I'm eager to hear from the public as well. I just had one more question, just going back to water briefly, if I could.
Certainly, go ahead.
Okay, and this is in regards to the WSP response to Aegis comments in regards to water, where there is a comment about potential impacts to surface water features as a result of water balance alterations associated with going from the existing conditions to operational conditions and finally to the rehabilitative conditions. It's not clear to me in the response from Aegis what their assessment was of those potential impacts. And I know you have the hydrogeologist at the table, so I would appreciate a quick elaboration of the WSP response to the Aegis comment in regards to potential impacts to surface water features. And I would say that I obviously want to extend my appreciation to Councillor O'Sullivan, who focused on traffic. I understood she was paying very careful attention to that report, so I've turned my attention to some of the concerns about water and wells. Thank you.
As Deputy or Mayor, the Aegis, they independently reviewed our report, and like you say, they provided a series of comments. And they were very good comments, and we responded back to them. I cannot remember the specific comment related to surface water effects, but within the body of our water report, we do look at alterations from going from existing conditions to pit to rehab and how it changes drainage, and the effects were minimal. I don't recall the specific comment from Aegis, but we responded to all of their comments. And in the end, we both ended up, they were satisfied with our response with a few recommendations that they provided that we're going to adopt. So.
Okay, I'll leave it there, and I'll look forward to potentially circling back on this issue after hearing from members of the public. Thank you.
Before we go there, Councillor O'Sullivan has another question. Go ahead.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor, through you to our representatives from Tomlinson. So my other concern, again, a health concern, is related to air quality. So the processing area will be processing aggregate and concrete. Is there any chance there would be asphalt being processed there at the same time or in the same location? That's one question. Shall I go ahead and keep asking questions and you can get them all at once? Yeah, okay. So processing, recycling or previously used concrete will result in dust, obviously, and that concrete could include silicone, which is artificially manufactured, but it also silicon dioxide, which is the sand. But basically, the silicon dioxide and the silicone can have the same effects on your health. They can cause silicosis, they can cause pulmonary fibrosis, all kinds of lung diseases. And I've watched a close family member die of pulmonary fibrosis, and it's a terrible way to go. So I think we have to be absolutely diligent to make sure that the air quality is safe and monitored. Yesterday, for example, you just had to walk outside. You could almost see, but you could definitely smell smoke from hundreds of kilometers away. So a 250 or a 30-meter buffer isn't really guaranteed to stop the particles from getting out into the atmosphere, and that the local people as far away as a few kilometers could get these dust particles in their lungs. So I asked that question last night. I was told that there was going to be random monitoring of air quality, but that not consistent monitoring of air quality. Also, that it is difficult to monitor the air quality for those particulates of silicone and any other particulates that could be in the air. And with the current weather and climate change, et cetera, these effects can be, we don't know for sure how serious they can be. There's no way of knowing at this point in time, but I think we have a duty to make sure that this is not going to negatively impact the air quality of the people who live anywhere near this pit, or any pit for that matter. You know that there's a mobility master plan and a climate action plan for North Grenville. And so I think given the climate changes, we need to do some more serious studies about what the effects of this air quality could be, and that the processing asphalt has different chemicals in it, can contaminate the ground if you are processing asphalt, recycled asphalt. Also, you have a lot of heavy equipment in there. What if there is a hydraulic leak, a diesel leak, all kinds of things can happen that could leak into the sand and through into the aquifer. So from a health concern, I think we have to look at the air quality and how it's monitored and how we know for sure that it's safe. That's my last comment at this point. Thank you.
Neil, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, through the deputy mayor to Councillor Sullivan. Yeah, I guess to where I would start with that is under the Aggregate Resource Act, there are what are known as prescribed conditions specifically involving dust. The key requirement being that dust has to be mitigated on site. So there's different requirements in place depending on what type of operating equipment would be in operation at the pit. So in this case, the processing area, there will be requirements with respect to dust suppressant and collection devices. Typically, just speaking high level, like the areas of highest activity at a pit, right, where you have trucks moving through the site, the areas where it's being processed, that's generally where you would find the areas where it could potentially produce the most dust. So there are requirements then about spraying down internal haul roads to keep dust down. The other thing on the phasing of the site, right, the amount of land you disturb, essentially the amount that you take the dirt to take the dirt away to extract the sand and gravel, has a correlation with how dust is mitigated on site too, right? Because if you expose too large of an area, it exposes itself to more dust being generated. So that's one of the ways in which the phasing of the site has worked to kind of keep those areas as small as possible with rehabilitation following. And then the other aspect too is the tree screens do have, I'm certainly not an air quality expert, but I know when speaking with them that the tree screens do have a positive effect on that. But certainly, we're happy to take that information away, Councillor, and specifically, I know you've brought up the question of monitoring so that that we can take a look at that. Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to the portion of the public meeting where the public gets to speak for or against the application. Anyone wishing to address the proposal will ask questions through myself, the chair. And when you come down to the deputation table, turn on the mic, Please state your name. If you want, you can state where your address, but that's not required, but we certainly need your name. And we would welcome the proponent to come and respond to any of the questions after we've heard from the public. So is there anyone here who wants to speak for or against the public? So I'll ask you to come down, sir, and state your name and your address if you care to. And we're going to put the 10-minute clock up for everyone, just so that everyone gets a chance to speak. And considering the number of people here, get comfortable because we might be here for a while. Okay. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My name's John Patterson. I lived on Patterson's Corners Road for 36 years. I'm going to speak tonight from my heart and from a gut as a longtime resident of this community. I moved here with my brother and parents in 1969. I fell in love with a local girl and married. Together we built a home and raised a family in Oxford Mills. I attended the information meeting last night here at the Municipal Center. When walking around talking with different experts, I heard one comment, one statement from several of the experts. Oh, that's a municipal concern. So I'm hopeful that our council is aware of the massive responsibility that has been placed upon their shoulders. Some of my major concerns are, of course, how this will affect our quality of life, our drinking water, our safety on the roads. As most of us know, North Grenville Waste Transfer Station, which I would estimate is about 2 kilometers as the crow flies from the proposed pit. This transfer station used to be a dump for decades. There is a distinct possibility that there is contamination in the ground around and under this old dump. With the disturbance of the water table and possibly the aquifer at the pit site, is it possible that these contaminants flow into the groundwater and potentially the aquifer? This pit site is downstream from the old dump. It is possible that contaminants flow southwest, as the Tomlinson report suggests, towards the pit. Will the municipality monitor more often the test wells that are around this transfer station to make sure that this concern is addressed? Truck routes. Will all the trucks that transport materials away from this pit be owned and operated by Tomlinson? If they are not, they are independent contractors. Independent contractors, they're a small-time guy. They're not going to have these 40-ton trucks that have been suggested in the traffic report. They're going to have a triaxle, which is a 20-ton truck. That increases the truck count that's going to be on the roads. These are independent contractors. They get paid by the load. The more loads they haul in a day, the more money they make. Although it is suggested that the main route is going to be along County Road 20, you can't control their routes or if they obeyed speed limits or stop signs. The traffic study is very well conducted, but it only covers a very small area within a few hundred meters of the pit. The trucks aren't going to be magically transported from Patterson's Corners to Highway 416. They have to travel 7 kilometers along County Road 20 or other roads. My main safety concern with reduced mail service coming in the future, congestion on the roads with people having to drive to community mailboxes, stopping their vehicles along the side of the road as an example, like what now happens along Oxford Station Road. Maple Hill Road now exits at the bottom of a hill. Along that road, can you imagine now turning off Maple Hill Road, turning wide to miss a car stopped in front of the rural community mailbox, only to meet a triaxle dump truck coming over the crest of the hill on County Road 20 heading west towards the new pit? Additionally, there is school bus traffic, Harvex seasonal traffic, seasonal farm traffic, the Lockwood Brothers subdivision traffic, and regular commuter traffic. This is a perfect storm for a tragedy which, God forbid, never happens. Using simple arithmetic, if the applicants run this pit at full requested capacity, and if the trucks running to and from the pit are hauling 20 metric tons, That is a possible 200 trucks daily running to and from the pit. That is one trip in empty, one trip out full. That's 400 trips in a day. One truck every 90 seconds in a presumed 10-hour, 5-day-a-week work cycle. That's only one area of road safety concern. There are many more. Many of us, including myself, searched for land out in the country, realizing that it would mean a further drive for the necessities, a further commute to the city to work. We knew that we would not have the convenience of city life, but that is exactly what we wanted. Planned and built our dream retirement near a Christmas tree farm, not a pit. And now to see a large company from the city come in and destroy our dream, our children's inheritance. How many other pits do Tomlinson's operate in Eastern Ontario? How many more lives are they going to impact? Will the owners of this pit be responsible for supplying the residents of the area a new well, or the cost of maintenance of water treatment equipment if existing wells are compromised? I'm sure that anyone has an issue with their well, Tomlinson's are not going to roll over and play dead. They are going to spend as much money or more than the cost of a new well trying to show other causes for well problems. For if they admit to ruining one well, then they open the floodgates to many other future claims for well replacements. And I doubt that that is in their budget. Will the municipality reimburse us, seeing as they have been collecting higher taxes on our soon-to-be depreciated property value homes? Tomlinson's application states that this is a temporary property use. Temporary is such a convenient term. Temporary use means if you borrow a picnic table, you return it in the same shape as when you borrowed it. This temporary use means that they will burn the picnic table and give us back the ashes. Once one shovel is put in the ground, our little piece of heaven will never be the same. I hope council will not allow this company to figuratively rape our environment and then walk away, however many years later, having taken everything that they wanted and making God knows how many millions of dollars at our expense and leaving some of us in ruin. I find the timing of this application incredibly manipulative. Waiting until the exact time when school is letting out, when many people are stepping back from the hustle of normal everyday life to relax a bit during the summer break, when we may not be as aware of what's happening around us as we would be in a regular 9-to-5, 5-day-a-week routine. When many residents may not even be aware of this application, let alone the information meeting and the planning meeting the very next night when council could vote to approve this application. This is so wrong in so many ways. Tomlinson has apparently had years to prepare for this moment and has given us longtime residents and taxpayers 24 hours. In the information meeting last night, there were some very well-educated people who were there to explain their expertise on their particular field. There's one thing to remember about these experts. They have been hired and paid by Tomlinson's, so of course they are going to paint things in a positive light for Tomlinson's if they ever want to be hired by them again. They're required by the province to only be concerned with an area of only 80 meters from the proposed pit. Well, we all know that groundwater and aquifer don't read maps, and it doesn't begin and end 80 meters from the pit. As I stated earlier, trucks don't magically disappear and reappear at a pit. They are going to be hard driven on our roads. I'm sure Tomlinson will claim that they did everything by the book, and I'm sure that they have, but there is by the book and by the book. You take the high road or you take the low road. In my humble opinion, this is the low road. Our community is worth fighting for. I hope that our councillors vote considering the 3 C's, conscience, compassion, and common sense, and turn down this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come down and speak to the application? Raise your hand. Go ahead. Come on down.
Good evening. My name is Carl Cannon. I'm a resident of North Grenville, and I'm here with my daughter, Erin.
Good evening, I'm Erin Cannon. I currently live at 805 Patterson's Corners Road, Oxford Mills. I've lived there since 2021. However, I did grow up in North Grenville. And obviously I have concerns today since I live approximately 60 meters from the proposed pit.
Just to recap a bit, the license application is for a maximum of 1 million tons per year extraction. It's to allow 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to extract gravel from above and below the water table. And they've also requested an aggregate recycling operation. To be clear, we're not in support of this proposal in any way. We feel that there are many adverse effects and negative impacts on health, safety, quality of life, as well as the environment. The proposal is very large. It is very different than any other gravel pit in that immediate area. And if you add on top of that, the concern for the aggregate recycling that they're proposing on the site. They call that an accessory use, but it'll be there as long as the pit is there, and the pit will be there as long as they want it to be there. I do note that legislation has made it very difficult for residents to oppose gravel pit applications. There is heavy reliance on the province and the Ministry of Natural Resources to ensure that all matters are dealt with appropriately and that they set the parameters for the provisions that applicants have to apply to meet. And that Tomlinson is a very large company. They have very substantive resources. I guess our concern with that, the reliance on the province, is that we'll advise that the Ontario Auditor General in 2023, reaffirmed in 2025, identified that there's a high non-compliance by the aggregate industry, that the Ministry of Natural Resources does not have enough inspectors, and those inspectors they have are not well trained, and that finally that even when there are known non-compliances, the ministry doesn't require them to comply, or they find them at a very low level, which then becomes just part of doing business. So who's looking out for the residents? Well, I would suggest it's not necessarily the province, so we have to look to the municipality. And they've made their applications and they're before you today, and we're here before you today. So hopefully our hope is that you will look out for the residents. Through the application, as noted, it seems Tomlinson is asking for a lot, but not necessarily giving anything, if I would say not giving anything. Mr. Mosier has identified that he has made a recommendation and put that before you today. But that's based on the limitations that the province set through their own policy, including the planning policies and environmental policies. So we would suggest that we would still have a position, and hopefully you would, that you would object to this application. The official plan for North Grenville, and you saw it on the fourth slide that Mr. Mosier showed, was that the aggregate resource in the ground and reflected on your mapping had a 150-meter setback from both O'Neill and Patterson's Corners Road. So basically, it provided all residents at least 150-meter setback provision away from a license. The applicants have chosen to go beyond the area that's designated on your official plan for reserve and go right up to the street line, and therefore there's only a 30-meter setback. So the municipality recognized the concept of an influence area, that obviously that gravel pits have impacts on residential uses, but they also, your official plan recognizes that residences have potential impact on aggregate uses. So when council adopted the official plan, they had a 150-meter setback for gravel pits. The applicants are reducing that down to right up to the road, and hence the 30-meter setback. Obviously, if you look at the gravel map for North Grenville and you're located in the the southern area of North Grenville, there are substantive aggregate reserves. You could live in that portion of North Grenville and not ever have a pit near you, or unfortunately, you could have a pit near you. That's a roll of a die, and it's very unfortunate. And that has a potential impact on a number of people that live in this portion of the municipality. Tomlinson advises they look to have an operation at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are various limitations being suggested from between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. or overnight. They advise that their operation would typically be 7 to 5, but they've asked for 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and weekends. I note if operation hours do preclude Saturday afternoon and all of Sunday, at least the residents have some predictability in their life, and they can have at least enjoyment within their outdoor areas in a known time frame, rather than whenever it suits the or whatever the needs are of the aggregate producer. Tomlinson's also advised that their operations are typically between April and October. And that's also when people tend to want to enjoy their yards. And so there's not a lot of comfort in that, I think, to the neighbors. So their operation will be at the highest level during the times where people want to enjoy their yards, their outdoors. Thompson's advises they would like nighttime operations so they can do road works. We would hope that that would be precluded. And if it's not able to be precluded, that you define specific nights that nighttime operation would be allowed, such as a couple of nights a week, and identify what those days would be. In those nighttime operations, they talk about various activities that they will be undertaking, and there are some limitations, so it is certainly not a full operation. But they will be having a loader and one excavator operating for loading and stockpiling. The processing plant may operate. Trucks in and out, 5 trucks per hour will be allowed. They won't allow internal hauling. But I do note that typically among those kind of noises, a typical truck can generate 100 decibels of sound. A loader and a truck with a backup beeper can create 110 decibels. Tailgates banging, and I don't know if you ever heard a tailgate bang. It just goes for miles and miles, and it's you know it when you hear it. We would strongly advocate not to have nighttime operations, but if that's going to happen, and then there need to be various ways to mitigate that. One was identified by the municipal planner, which certainly we would advocate, would be the use of broadband reverse alarms. Because if you've heard the beepers for reverse alarms, that is another one that just sort of hits you like a knife, especially through the nighttime. So they talk about daytime decibels, 40 to 50 decibels during the daytime and evening operations. So that's the equivalent of what they say in the decibel tables. A large office noise, I should say, and constant rainfall. So that will be always there. That's an average. There will be higher noises. I could not get from the acoustic person the frequency of the higher noises and what that level would be. He just said, on average, this is what the number will be. We're suggesting there needs to be some kind of real-time, ongoing monitoring of sound near the residences so that the numbers can actually be appreciated and that that information be available to the public. I'm not sure we can rely on M&R on that. There are issues pertaining to, as identified by the councillor with respect to dust. We're suggesting, especially the application of the aggregate recycling should not be permitted. That is known to cause airborne dust and small particulate matter, especially with the crushing of recycled asphalt. This is a substantive health concern. Small particulate matter can lead to asthma, bronchitis, lung cancer, respiratory issues, infections, etc. The best practices, I love the term best practices that Tomlinson identifies for dealing with dust is if we see it, we'll water it down. You don't see small particulates. You don't see dust at nighttime, especially small particulates. So I'm not really sure how that is the best practice, but it is what's recognized by the province. So again, the province narrows the parameters, and I don't think is looking out for the interests of the residents. So there needs to be.
Mr. Cannon, sorry to interrupt. If you can wrap it up. So
if you could, I have some other items.
I'll give you another minute or two.
Well, actually, technically, I'm allowed to speak as long as I'm reasonably addressing the issue.
Oh, go ahead. But if you can do it in 2 minutes.
I will try to deal with it. So there needs to be real-time dust monitoring around the property. And that is something we would hope the municipality would put in. We have made suggestions in our submission with respect to license. The planner did not speak to the hour of operations at all. And we suggest, and we have provided suggestions on limitations of operations for hours, and we would hope that you would consider those. We have suggested also that I believe Mr. Mosier spoke to it, but maybe someone else that I'm not recollecting. But the berms should be placed along O'Neill Road and Patterson's Corners right at the very beginning rather than the later phases. And I would suggest that they should be 15 meters wider to allow protection of the existing trees there, because Tomlinson said, we'll do our best to protect the trees if we can while we put the berms in. Well, I think you should provide 15 more meters and protect those trees. Don't crush the roots and give them a chance to survive. I do note one matter with respect to the notice of motion. We did see that. We are supportive of it. I do have one suggestion, which I'll pass to the deputy mayor, so the deputy mayor can pass it to the clerk. I do note that consistent with that is that Dr. Thurston, who's an internationally recognized expert of air quality and epidemiology and exposure assessments, etc., has been appearing before the Ontario Land Use Tribunal, identifying the health issues of microscopic particles, PM 2.5s and other small particulates, and that the board is beginning to hear about this. And again, he is saying that there is a need for real-time air quality monitoring around aggregate sites. So thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for wrapping up within the time I granted you. Out of respect for everyone else who might want to come to the, I would like at this point to get an indication of how many more people would like to come and speak, because usually at this time, council gives themselves a little break. And yeah, sure. Thank you. Just to you. So hands up. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. That I'm not going to cut it off at 4 or 5. Yes. Okay. So the next person, you want to come down, and then after this next deputation, I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute break, but I'll have to get Councillor O'Sullivan to move that.
Hi, my name is Michelin Lockman. I'm the owner at 1445 O'Neill Road. So I have some concerns from maybe a different standpoint. As a resident of the area who obviously has put substantial investment into my home and my property, I'd like to actually ask the municipality for how the municipality is going to deal with this from a homeowner perspective, whether we are entitled to an MPAC reassessment based on decreased anticipated property values for a resale perspective. This has been historically an issue for areas that are butting up against or adjoining to aggregate licensed areas. So if we're looking at potential decreases in our property value, I would like to know how we can get those either mitigated if this is pushed through, and how we apply and how those forms are provided for us so we can immediately start that process to reduce our property taxes based on the decrease in our property values. So that's my first one. And the only other one that I really kind of want to bring up is again, I'm going to echo a few of my neighbors here in saying that there's some interesting moments. I think that Tomlinson has made some interesting commentary with regards to water table levels in April in the spring. We were fortunate, I think most of my neighbors and myself, of not having our wells go dry last October after a 16, 18 weeks of virtually no rainfall. I would love to know if Tomlinson is monitoring those in a similar fashion as to what they're doing from the traffic control perspective. We will give you a number that suits our purposes, as opposed to giving you statistics that might make this a less desirable option for the municipality to consider. So I would just hope that the municipality looks at the bigger picture and how Tomlinson is choosing to present that information so that it benefits their cause, as opposed to not necessarily providing the most accurate information that might possibly provide you with a reason to deny it. And that's all.
Fine. Applause cuts into your time to speak in front of council, but I'm not going to belabor that point. I don't have a question. That was rather brief. Thank you very much, to the point. So we've got time for one more before we take a 5-minute break. Who would like to come down and give us 10 minutes? Okay. Yeah, great.
So my name's Tanya Deans. I live on 15 Balmoral Street. My main question is asking the municipality to, with regards to the complaints process, because that is really the power that the public has once this, is out of our control and the pit is running. Can you please thoroughly review the complaints process and determine any suggestions on how to ensure that the public has a timely resolution to their complaints? And that's it.
Thank you. We're going to take, maybe Councillor O'Sullivan, can you move for a 5-minute break? And I'll get the mayor to second that. And we'll break for 5 minutes, come back at 8:45 and hear.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
might I appeal to you for 7 minutes?
7 minutes? Okay. 7 minutes.
If my mover colleague, Councillor Sullivan, is amenable.
I think it's a friendly amendment from
Indeed.
Councillor Sullivan. Yeah,
Uh,
we'll come back and we'll hear from the rest of the people who would like to speak for or against the application, and then we'll give an opportunity for the applicant to respond to some of the questions that are heard, and maybe some of the questions we can address other than the applicant.
You
Okay.
may wish to call the question on the move to suspend.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll call the question. Yes, please.
Favor. Thank you.
All right. We're back. Are we recording? We're recording. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to take a little break there. Who would, I know we've got about 4 or 5 more people to come down. So the next person who would like to speak, please come on down. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes, ma'am. Madam
I'm
Mayor.
not seeing you, or I'm not seeing anyone. Oh, I'm now seeing a member of the public. Thank you. Is it possible to also see members of council, or I guess the camera is just on the, there you are. Okay. It's helpful to see you, but I'd also like to see, of course, the members of the public who are speaking. So I guess the camera goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. And again, just state your name, and if you want to, you can state your address if you think it's relevant. Go ahead and hit the button. Oh, thank you. Great. Thank you.
My name is Anina Lynn Rose. I live at 782 Patterson's Corners Road, about 500 feet from the proposed pit. Some of the things I wanted to bring up were like the pedestrian safety. I either walk or cycle around 160 kilometers a week between the corner of Patterson's Corners and Highway 20 and the highway. And that's just me, let alone the other couple hundred residents that live there with the trucks going by all the time. And with the loud noises, I know a lot of people have pets, dogs, and not all dogs like loud noises and they'll run away. What happens if a dog runs across a road and a truck swerves to miss it and overturns? What happens then? Someone was mentioning the nighttime use. Will there be an engine brake ban or a Jake brake ban? I drive trucks. Those brakes are very loud, especially at nighttime. A lot of areas have bans imposed against using those. Back to the road safety, between Oxford Station and the highway, there is, what was there? 4 blind hills where you come over it. What happens if a truck breaks down or a tire blows out? The shoulders are 3 feet wide. A truck is going to block half a lane. What happens if a loaded truck has to cross that line over a blind hill and meets a car head on? What happens then? With the speed limit through Oxford Station, it's a 70 zone. There's a park approximately 200 feet from from Highway 20. There's children that use that park. What if one of them wanders towards Highway 20? Will that speed limit be lowered to 50 to accommodate all the new trucks that cross those tracks? With the intersection at Highway 20 and Patterson's Corners Road, that is currently a one-way stop. Will it be updated to a 4-way stop with all the new trucks that are making that corner in the terms of safety for the pedestrians and cyclists? And with the noise, I drive around 140 kilometers to and from work each day so that I can live in a quiet rural area. And with all the new noise from the trucks, that area will no longer be a quiet home. My hope is that you reject this application.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Prue. I live on 706 Patterson Corners Road. My concern is I don't come to you as an expert, but I've been in the business for 30 years. This is what I do every day. And there's a lot of holes in what I see. I walked through there last night, looked at everything, and there's quite a bit of stuff missing. We talk about decibels for noise. they're doing concrete recycling or asphalt, it's going to take a hydraulic hammer. Hydraulic hammers run around 150 decibels. That's not 50, that's 150. A 350 excavator John Deere runs in at 110, 120 decibels. You need this stuff to break up the concrete because the concrete's going to have rebar in it because it's obviously picked up from somewhere else, a bridge, whatever, right? Not to mention in that, and I do this every day, so not to mention the rebar comes rusted. It comes with pieces. It's steel. Once they break it up, separate the rebar, they got to put it through the crusher. Once it goes through the crusher, it makes dust. They can water it down, but it still makes dust. So they crush it, and then usually what they do is they recycle it, they reuse it. They can put it back in. Sometimes they put it in the asphalt. They can reuse it to concrete for roads. There's multiple things they can do with it, but it's definitely going to cause a lot of noise and potential. Again, all these machines, they can use Environ oil, they can use whatever they want, but at the end of the day, these machines run on diesel, unless I highly doubt they'll be running electric. So they'll be running diesel, and when these things break, they leak, and nobody can control when a hydraulic hose breaks. Nobody can control when the pump quits. Nobody can control when the track falls off and they got to drain the cylinder to put the track back on. Nobody can control these things, and that stuff is going to go into the water. And as much as they're going to do their best, 100%, I'm sure they'll do their best to try and stop it. You can't stop it 100%. I mean, you're contaminating the ground. So that being said, brings me to wells. As the gentleman spoke, I'm not a professional, but I do deal with WSP quite often. And in my experience, drilled wells, may not be affected, but a surface well definitely will. If you have a 3-tile well in the back of your house at 15 feet, you'll most likely be affected if you're close enough. And contamination also. If you have a surface well, you stand more chance to be contaminated. And also, we don't know that at the rock elevation, if the rock is fractured, there is potential with low water tables for the lower aquifer to be contaminated. I mean, it's just natural occurrence. When you got higher water, pressure pushes down, you got head pressure. So that's a concern of mine also, having a surface well. Truck traffic. So they're going to be recycling, and I noticed in the notes last night it says trucks leaving. Well, the trucks have to come and leave, right? So if they're going to be bringing in concrete, they'll probably try to do their best to limit it to double hauling, haul in recycled, haul out good stuff. But that again, you're dealing with all these trucks, and then we're also dealing with trucks below hydraulic lines. Well, they're driving down, County Road 20, and they blow a hydraulic line. Well, that oil's going somewhere, and most truckers, in my experience, don't carry spill kits with them. So we're going to have hydraulic leaks in our ditch. We're going to have hydraulic leaks out by the railroad tracks. We're going to have all kinds of things, diesel fuel leaks, right? They blow a valve on the bottom of the tank. It's all potential. And you have this every day also, right? Like with the regular people going around, but now we're talking like, hundreds of loads a day, and even like at 5 loads every 5-10 minutes, and we're not talking just dump trucks. We're talking live bottoms. We're talking end dumps, 40-footers. We're talking a lot of equipment. And on that point, they're going to be hauling all the contaminated stuff in. Not contaminated, I should say, but like concrete that has rebar in it, right? And we've seen it in the past where, the concrete, Lafarge has this set up right now. GIP does it also, that, it has to meet certain requirements. They can't bring in concrete with rebar, without rebar. Are those measures going to be put in place? Is it going to be strictly no rebar? Same with their asphalt. Is it going to be, because through the years they've tried different styles of asphalt, right? Some asphalt has been not necessarily Thompson, but older companies have done asphalt with rubber in it. Some is chip, It's all potential if they're going to recycle it there. Is it or potential to contaminate the water and contaminate the environment? Also, trucks leaving. I'm 100% sure that the Thompson trucks will use County Road 20. I'm sure they will, out of respect for the company. But where we run into a problem there's going to be hired trucks. And hired trucks will go wherever they choose to go, regardless if we even make it a no truck route. If it's the shortest route, they're coming from Kentville, they're gonna come the back way. They're not going to go all the way with the 460 and go all the way around. And I asked the question last night to the gentleman in traffic, and my answer was, well, stand on the side of the road, take pictures, and call the police and let them know they shouldn't be there. I understand they don't control the private trucks working for them, but it is a big problem. It is a big concern. And Patterson Corners Road doesn't have the sub-base to sustain this amount of traffic or roads. It's an old gravel road that has 2 inches of chip asphalt on the top of it. It won't sustain a week of trucks at that volume. And I have a good feeling that we're already seeing it right now currently with GIP paving the highway. They're using their pit over on Beach, and some of the trucks are coming around back up Patterson Corners Road and going back out to the pit. So we're seeing it now, and that pit's not even on their trajectory. It's just the way they exit off the highway. They have to do the loop. So I imagine with having a quarry, I should say a sand pit there, we're going to have the same issue. Also, the other impact is going to be for the locals, right? We have a sand pit across the street that's there, which everybody keeps saying, well, there's a pit there. It's a little tiny pit that the city takes a little bit of sand out of it when they need it from the people who own it. And but it's also going to compete with like Willis Kerr, for example, which has a pit out off a Stagecoach. It's going to compete with all the local residents because in my experience, Thomason normally also sells aggregates and sand to client, right? Which is normal, which is business, which we understand, but it's going to have an effect on the people around us and the small business guy. It's really going to make a big impact. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council. My name is Susan Andrews. I live at the old schoolhouse at the intersection of Patterson's Corners and O'Neill Road. So I'm extremely concerned about this pit for more reasons than I can even imagine, that I can even mention now, because basically many have been covered. I would like to point out that yes, there is a beauty zone of trees around the property, but in that particular corner, as in fact was displayed earlier, showing the intersection at that property, the trees are old and spindly. They wouldn't stop any dust at all. Furthermore, I've got 2 questions. First of all, why is this meeting even taking place before all the reviews are in? All these peer review papers from all the different ministries. Why are we having this meeting now? Why is this being voted on now? Shouldn't this be voted on in a proper and responsible manner after the reviews have been done? Second question. I would like to see a show of hands from any council members who have friends or family who work for Tomlinson. Okay, good. Good to know that there won't be any cronyism going on. As for the Red Army, leave.
Next. Thank you. Come on down. No, come on down in order to be on the record so that we've captured it and we have a record of it, please.
Okay. My name is Dana Buka. I live on 1455 O'Neill Road. And my question is, I am concerned about the water, the property value decreasing and all that, what everybody mentioned here. But my question is, how did we come to this? How did it happen? Because was it the people, the owner of the farm who bought it, who bought the property a few years ago? How come Tomlinson ended up with this relatively small piece of land, which they want to now turn to sandpit? There are no other places, where there is no such a traffic. Like there are people all the way on Oxford Station and Patterson's Corner. How come we ended up with big company like that owning this little tiny piece of land? It's like, I don't know, 55 acres, or it's not really that big. That's my question. I would like to know who sell it to them, or how did they ended up with this? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands, but I'll ask again. Come on down. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tom Graham. I live in Bishop's Mills. I have concerns about this project. It's been very concerning to hear a lot of the residents and concerns that have been raised tonight as well, and I share some of those concerns. But I wanted to go back. I also belong to a community group of concerned citizens called Sustainable North Grenville, and we had the privilege of speaking to Council 6 months ago in January when we were looking at upgrading our official plan. And at that time, our community group came up with a number of concerns that we wanted to bring forward to Council. And I think some of those concerns are relevant tonight, which I note that Deputy Director of Planning Mosher mentioned the point that the application sort of meets all the current municipal and provincial policies at this time. So I recognize that and acknowledge that. The provincial policy statement says that municipalities are responsible for the protection of water. I'm repeating myself from January, but section 4.2 of the latest PPS states planning authorities shall protect, improve, or restore the quality and quantity of water by minimizing potential negative impacts, implementing necessary restrictions on development and site alteration to protect all drinking water supplies in designated vulnerable areas, and protect, improve, or restore vulnerable surface and groundwater and their hydrologic functions. So I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I am just sort of reminding Council of their duty, and it also allows you to say, well, the provincial policy statement wants us to do this, so how do we do that? I don't have the answer to that question, but except making sure it remains your duty of care to kind of find a way. Speaking with the conservation authorities, hydrogeologist Claire Malloy back in January, she passed on a message to me. She said municipalities are asked to use their planning powers. Municipalities are asked to use their planning powers to keep new and potentially inappropriate land uses out of highly vulnerable areas. To protect Ontarians, provincial and municipal government agencies, community organizations, and landowners must all take responsibility and push for the protection of our groundwater resources. So I'm like, okay, well, this is what I think we heard the opportunity tonight that people were raising those concerns. Opportunity to do just that by looking for an alternative to this this pit, for example. I am not a hydrogeologist. I'm not an expert. I have lived in this area for 50 years. I've seen people's wells go dry. I've seen creek beds go dry. I've seen them flooded. I've seen creeks overflowing the road. So I think it's commendable that the proponent has 5 years of data coming out of their test wells. That's very good, and that's suitable for that area. But I think that it's what's going to look like in 5 years from now. I didn't realize until tonight that the pit may be in operation by the proponent's admission decades, at least a couple, 10, 20 years from now, which is a long time. Or from my perspective, actually not that long a time, but as I said, I'm not an expert, but the Officer of the Auditor General claimed in 2023 that aggregate extraction changes the landscape permanently. It can fundamentally and irreversibly transform the landscape, which can affect important natural features on or near extraction sites. Aggregate extraction may pose a risk to local groundwater resources by exposing new pathways for pollutants, which was just mentioned by the previous gentleman, such as fuel used on site to flow into the groundwater. Aggregate extraction often results in a large depression that creates a new pond or lake, which can permanently alter the way water drains and refills the groundwater reserves, which I think we also heard from the hydrogeologist tonight. So since I'm not a professional consultant, I'm just a resident who drinks his water right out of the ground. If I read the Office of the Auditor General making these claims, and I hear the proponents saying, don't worry about it, I'm obliged to worry about it, because I can understand how tests have been done, and that's one thing. So I would like to err on the side of caution and not rush into anything, and maybe there's a way that we could put a pause on this until, as somebody else said, maybe we can do some of our own studies. I think our official plan is not finalized yet. We have a new draft official plan where some changes have been made or being proposed, and I think maybe we need to look at that. I tend not to put a lot of faith in the provincial governments and even especially the Ministry of Natural Resources, which has been pointed out by Mr. Cannon, that the Auditor General found that MNR does not have the resources to even monitor or let alone require compliance by the aggregate industry in their aggregate rehabilitation projects. So that gives me some concern. Like these are concerns that are raised by people a lot smarter than me, and I think that has to be given some consideration. I was asking earlier to Deputy Director Mosier, Director of Planning Mosier, about the effect of cumulative pits, and it was somewhat explained by the hydrogeologist, but I said, well, how many pits do we even have in North Grenville right now? Does anybody even know that? And of course, I spoke to Mr. Mosier last night, and he said, well, somebody could look that up. So I did look it up this morning, and I found out that we have probably a dozen or more pits, totaling over 600 hectares, but more significantly, they're all licensed. The total license aggregate tonnage that they're allowed to extract each year is 4.7 million tons of aggregate a year can come out of North Grenville. And I checked with Mr. Mosier this morning, and he said he had a staff look into the same thing, said that they had come up with similar results. So obviously my amateur version of putting numbers from an Ontario website into a spreadsheet came out with a similar answer. And so, but none of them are licensed to extract 1 million tons a year. The highest number is 500,000. And that would make this project one of the biggest. And I can't help but think as a resident that the municipality perhaps should maybe do some diligence as to how, what impact that has to have a new project that might actually add 20% more aggregate extracted than we're currently extracting. At some point, there'll be a straw that breaks the camel's back, and maybe our job is to protect water, not wait and not fix it when something goes wrong with it. And water is one of those things that's really hard to fix. We can get aggregate from some other place, but we can't get water anywhere but out of our ground. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public for or against the application? Going once, going twice? One last question. If we can pause, well, I'll give you the 3 minutes remaining on Tom's time since you've been down here before, so come on down. And again, it's Anil?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
My question is about hazardous materials. Will they have storage on site, fuel, any chemicals? What happens if there's a leakage, or someone mentioned earlier, one of the trucks breaks down, hydraulic fluid? Will they have the proper cleanup kits on site to make sure that that doesn't get into the water?
I'm going to take that as the last question, even though I only got to going once, going twice, but I'm going to say going 3 times. Now, I'd invite the applicant to come up and if they care to, address some of the concerns that residents have brought forward. If you need a refresher, I think both Deputy Director and I have been taking notes about some of the questions, but hopefully you have too. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to the public for coming out and providing the comments and concerns and questions. Myself and Chris, the hydrogeologist, and Craig from Tomlinson have been diligently taking notes. What I would suggest we do, given what we've heard tonight and in recognition of some of the comments that we heard at our open house yesterday, is that we then provide a written response to those comments. Importantly, I want to make sure that we're not missing anything and that all members of the public are able to see responses directly to their concerns. I think with some of the things we heard is probably best suited if council is amenable that Tomlinson would be providing a response in writing to what they heard.
We'll take that under consideration for sure. Any other feedback? I appreciate that offer of doing that, and I'll go to council colleagues and we'll discuss that once we deal with your with the recommendations from staff. Okay, thank you. So yes, sorry, yes, Councillor O'Sullivan, and I'm looking for the mayor, but she doesn't have her hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. If I may, following the discussion that I heard this evening, I have two extra questions, if that's okay. The first one is regarding nighttime operations, which would, I assume, would mean some bright lighting. I think part of living in the country in a rural area is how much we value dark skies. And I have a concern about the lighting that would be required for nighttime operations, not to mention the noise, but certainly the lighting that would be required for a nighttime operation. How much lighting, how bright would it be? It's difficult to be dark sky compliant when they're very bright lights and they're high. And would they be on all the time? Would there be required for security lighting all the time? Or would it be just when there was operations happening during the night? So that's a pretty big concern, I think, the night light pollution that is a potential with this operation. And the other question that has come up is, last night when I was at the information session, there was a large poster that indicated the haul route would be County Road 20, would not be on O'Neill, would not be on Patterson Road. But as someone has pointed out this evening, if they are hired trucks, not Tomlinson trucks, you don't have any way of guaranteeing that they will use that haul route. They could take municipal roads, which as someone also pointed out, aren't built to withstand this heavy truck haulage. How would the municipality be compensated for any road destruction that would happen based on the heavy trucks? So it's nice that you have a haul route established, but if you can't enforce that route, that would be a problem. So those two questions, if you don't mind responding to those when you respond, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. And I see the mayor has her hand up. So go ahead, Madam Mayor, if you have another comment before I close the public meeting.
Certainly, Deputy Mayor, and I can ask my question subsequent to the meeting being closed if you've received all the comments from the public. Obviously, council colleagues still have the right to address Tomlinson, the consultants and staff on any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Something happened here. Okay. Well, I think what I'm going to do is just thank Tomlinson for the submission and ask you to hang around till for council to deliberate the recommendation brought forward from the planning department, and thank everyone who's attended. It's a real treat to see the seats filled, not to capacity, but we usually have council meetings and we're talking to an empty auditorium. So this is great to see a lot of people come out and hopefully understand a little bit of the complexity of planning meetings and the process we have to go through. So I will now close the public meeting, and council, the recommendations in the report PD-2026-035 are now before council. If we can just call up the recommendations of staff, the clerk, I think, has the document.
Deputy Mayor, before
Yes.
consideration of the recommendation, I did have another question based upon the comments from the public.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your
Okay.
last comment. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. In terms of the, not just the traffic impact study, but the amount of vehicles on the road, I wanted to ask if this math was correct from Tomlinson's perspective, and that is if it's 1 million tons per year at approximately 25 tons per truck, 35 tons on larger transports, and about 18 on tandems. Someone has provided the estimation that we'd be looking at 40,000 trucks a year coming in one way and 40,000 trucks a year leaving the other way. And I'm just wondering if Tomlinson or the representative could speak to that estimation based upon what we've heard tonight from a number of different residents about the volume of truck activity. I understand, of course, that Tomlinson is proposing a separate entrance onto County Road 20, but I am still trying to grapple with the sheer volume of trucks that might be on the road.
Go ahead if someone would like to respond.
Or perhaps Tomlinson can, in their follow-up, address their estimated volume if they're no longer at the mic. But it's a point of clarity that I would appreciate.
Okay, I think procedurally we have to deal with the report from planning staff and consider our options on how to address it. What I'm hearing from Tomlinson is they would probably prefer us to defer voting on the recommendation or the report, which is one of the options that I think we've got up there that staff isn't necessarily recommending, but far be it from me to deny Tomlinson the opportunity to address all the questions. The last one from the mayor, specificity on the traffic. I just want to ensure that if you're coming back with a letter that it's comprehensive. I've taken notes. Maybe what I can suggest is maybe the deputy director and I can compare notes and so that we capture everything and then relay that to you. But far be it from me to move any, I'll be looking to the rest of council, either Councillor O'Sullivan or yourself, Madam Mayor, to address the report in front of us. I would expect, I think, a motion to defer is what I'd be looking for. So I'd look for one of the two of you to move that and another person to, Madam Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, I think given all of the comments from the public and some of the questions we've asked this evening and the fact that there appears to be some pending comments from the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville in regards to the traffic impact study and also other impacts on road infrastructure, I would like to move a deferral this evening so that we can get better information, or I should say more information that wasn't necessarily fully circulated this evening. So that would be my motion, is that we defer consideration of this application this evening.
Okay, well, we'll try and formulate that. I don't know if the clerk has captured it, but we need a seconder, so I'd be looking for Councillor O'Sullivan. So that's seconded. I think, do we need a moment to see if we captured the mayor's motion?
I think it's a straight up deferral. I provided some rationale, but effectively
Just a
my
straight
motion
deferral.
is
And
to
that would
defer.
allow us to come back with new information from Tomlinson. Is that correct? Or are we talking about a referral? Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would just suggest that probably August 26 would be a potential date that it could return. There's two council dates in August, the 18th and then 26th. 18th is quite full. The 26th looks like it may be available, if that's amenable.
I might suggest a deferral to no later than the end of September. If all the information is provided by the end of August, excellent. But I'd like to give ourselves a little more time. So if I could add that we defer until no later than the end of September.
Councillor O'Sullivan, is that amenable to you? Yeah, so that's a friendly amendment, and we'll wait for the clerk. Are you prepared to? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So move to defer to either the August 26th or the second meeting in September to come back to council with all the information?
So
I think they're no later than the end of September. So I think there are a couple of windows in there.
okay, so we're not going to specify a date. We're just going to say no later than the end of September. Yeah. And that's it? In terms of detail, that's all we need? No reference to Thomason returning with a letter? I see. Thank you. Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Great. Okay. So expect to see most of you back when it comes back to council, no later than the end of September. Thank you. Thank you all. And for those of you who are interested in how we end council meetings with one item on the agenda or two items on the agenda, hang tight. Next item on our agenda is deputations and proclamations. We were going to have a deputation concerning Beth Donovan, but they're not able to come and do the deputation. But there's another one here, Overdose Awareness Day. That's not coming to us tonight either. Is that correct? It's the same one. Okay. All right. Consent agenda. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the consent agenda as submitted. There's only one item, and that's the appointment of municipal officers. Can I get a mover? Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. And a seconder. Madam Mayor, will you second? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. There are no minutes of the previous meetings for approval this evening. There are no reports. Okay, there are no reports for approval this evening. Correspondence. Now, I understand from Councillor Wilson that she wanted this pulled. Oh, that's a different one. Thank you. I'm relying on you to keep me straight. This is a motion for provincial support, funding, and coordinated plans to combat tick-borne diseases. Who pulled that for? Oh, it's not for discussion. Oh, okay. Does anyone want to bring this back to a next meeting? I don't see any appetite for it. Okay, so we're moving on to motion and notice of motions. Notice of motions for consideration at this meeting. So we do have one notice of motion that I read into the record on July 7th. I'm not going to read it again other than to point out there's been an addition in the recitals, namely, let me find it here, please. Unless I gave a copy to you and, oh, no, I've got it. There's one addition to my notice of motion, and that is an additional recital, whereas Section 38 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, authorizes council to pass an interim control bylaw to prohibit and regulate land. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Yeah, sorry, it's up earlier. This is the additional recital. And whereas these applications reflect broader aggregate development pressure, oh no, just a second. I'm sorry, I've confused myself. I've got the highlighted section here. To start again, there's an additional recital to the notice of motion that was made last week, and that is, whereas municipalities and the Ontario Land Tribunal are attempting to address the potential health implications of microparticulates arising from aggregate operations and associated processing by requiring more stringent provisions. And then it goes on to the final recital. Madam Clerk, do I need to read it in its entirety? It's part, okay, great. Okay, I'll hear from the mayor before I ask for a mover and a seconder. Madam Mayor.
Certainly, Deputy Mayor, and obviously, once you read that motion into the record last week, I've certainly been giving it some consideration myself. And I am aware that there is some precedent for using the interim control bylaw to give council an opportunity to reflect on aggregate policies more generally, and certainly given where we're at with our own official planning process, I could argue that timing is fairly good when it comes to looking at some of the other best practices across the province. So at this point, I was just going to express my support, and I'm happy to move the motion at such a time as you're looking for that.
Thank you. And I'd like to make a statement as well to Tomlinson. This interim control bylaw is simply a measure to ensure that this activity, any aggregate activity in North Grenville, proceeds under a certain common sense protections, and I don't think they're available right now in the current official plan. Even though comments have officially closed June 28th, we're still in the process of finalizing the official plan. And I think it's important that we take a close look at Section 7 that deals with aggregate, and so that we have the protections in place to protect the long-term health and safety of our community. So I'm looking for a mover, and yeah, oh, no, we're not ready to move yet. Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Perhaps I should have had it moved and seconded before I made a comment, and you can correct me, or the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the, I believe it's the fourth or fifth paragraph where in the whereas we're looking for more specific details about certain things, I would like to specifically have mention of the traffic impact and in particular pedestrian and cyclist safety, because I think it deserves to have its be specifically included in those.
Thank you for that clarity. So I'll invite you to ask that question or make that suggestion after we get this on the table. And so I'll be looking for a mover.
I think the mayor moved, and I will second.
Okay, so now it's on the table, and now we can deliberate. So go ahead. You're looking for the fourth paragraph.
I think it's the fourth.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, my computer
well, I think it's
battery died.
Yeah, it's the yeah. Well, no, you're talking about haul route effects. Basically, there's a list of things that we are asking.
Somewhere where it said not.
I think it's this one.
I do think I have it here, Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, what did you say?
I think it's the paragraph where it says, whereas the municipality's official plan aggregate policies have not been comprehensively reviewed and do not provide policy
And
framework.
there's a list. There's
Exactly.
a list.
So if we could just ask for traffic impact studies, or traffic impacts rather, including pedestrian safety, to be included in that list. I think, Councilor Sullivan, that might be acceptable to you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So traffic impacts, including pedestrian safety, pedestrian cyclist safety?
Active transportation safety, I think,
yes.
includes cyclists and pedestrians.
Well, that would be active transportation, right? Yeah. So traffic impacts, including active transportation.
Right? Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd take that as a friendly amendment. So if we can adjust that.
Could we also, in that list, if I might, just add volume of truck traffic, which is a little bit independent from, or maybe it's more road infrastructure. Perhaps that could also be considered as part of this particular paragraph.
Sorry, I missed that. I was looking for a place to put it, and then
I would just say volume of truck traffic and related
volume of
road
traffic
infrastructure impacts.
and related
Road infrastructure impacts.
road infrastructure impacts. Okay, thank you. Okay. Anything else? It's a long shopping list, but I think it's all important stuff to deal with. Yep. Okay. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That passes. Thank you very much. And So are there any notices of motions for consideration at a future council meeting? Seeing none, I'll go on to petitions and written communications from the public. We had a lot for this, but we don't have any additional. And I've lost my final page, but I'm sure it's confirming bylaw. Is that the next thing we have to do? Unfinished business. Wilson, that's where they were parked. Yes, and she indicated that, yeah. So I've lost my little script about how to wrap it up. Confirming bylaw is what's next. Mover and seconder for confirming bylaw.
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, any further questions from the public relating to? We still have public here. It's so much fun. Any other questions related to the item on the agenda? No, we've exhausted you, I see. Okay. Council's a little bit more resilient. We can go till 10, although we don't like to. Okay, so, okay, yeah, we're looking for confirmation bylaw. Do I have to cite the, yeah, mover and the seconder? I don't have much choice. Seconded by, thank you, Madam Mayor. Call the question, all in favor? There we go. And the movement to adjourn.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And let me guess, thank you. There's no discussion on these motions to adjourn. At least that's what the mayor tells me, and I believe her. Okay, all in favor? All right, we're done. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you,
With
Deputy Mayor, for
indulgence.
chairing
Well-
in my absence. I
Well,
appreciate it.
thank you for the trust in putting the chair underneath my seat or whatever.
Thank
this
you.
person is.
And thanks to our municipal staff and everyone who came out to speak tonight.
Yes,
Appreciate
yeah.
it.